Beneath a shattered stone ceiling, under a moon so full it bleeds silver across ancient walls, an alpha king does the unthinkable. He finds his destined mate, the one wolf meant to stand beside him for eternity, looks into her eyes as the sacred bond ignites between them and rejects her. In front of hundreds. The word shatters like glass across the moon court, and Caliph Voss, bloodline unknown, power dormant, stands alone in a silence so thick it could choke. But this is not a story about a woman destroyed by rejection. This is about what happens when the wolf they underestimated refuses to break. And an entire kingdom realizes too late that they just cast out their only queen. If you want to see how a rejected mate becomes the most dangerous force in the realm, stay until the end. Drop a like and tell me in the comments what city you're watching from. Let's begin. The moon court smelled like stone and old blood, and something else Caliph couldn't name. Power, maybe, or fear dressed up as reverence. She stood at the edge of the gathering, shoulders back, chin level, trying not to look like she was about to crawl out of her own skin. Around her, wolves packed the massive hall until there was barely room to breathe. High-born, low-born, warriors with scars carved into their faces, elders draped in ceremonial furs that probably cost more than her entire life. All of them waiting. The ceiling overhead was a ruin of fractured stone and exposed wooden beams, gaps wide enough that moonlight spilled through in thick silvery columns. It hit the floor in pools, and where it touched, wolves stepped carefully around it like the light itself might burn. Caliph had heard the stories. The moon court was older than any living pack, older than the Northern Dominion itself, built by wolves who'd understood things the modern packs had forgotten. And tonight, under the full moon, it was where mates were recognized, bonds announced, futures decided. Caliph had no illusions about why she was here. She wasn't high-born. Her parents were dead, had been for years, and they'd left her nothing but a name that meant nothing to anyone. She'd survived on the outskirts of pack life, doing jobs no one else wanted, keeping her head down, staying unremarkable. But 3 weeks ago, she'd felt it. A pull. A heat in her chest that grew stronger every day until she couldn't ignore it anymore. The elders had seen it in her eyes, smelled it on her skin. A bond forming. Rare enough that even the lowest wolf got a place in the moon court when it happened. She just hadn't expected it to be him. Quiet. The voice cut through the murmur of hundreds of wolves like a blade through flesh. Instant silence. Caliph's pulse kicked hard against her ribs. Alpha King. Aaron Draven stood at the far end of the hall, framed by moonlight so bright it looked like the sky was trying to crown him. He was tall, broad-shouldered, and carried himself like a man who'd never questioned his right to anything. His hair was dark, cut short, and his eyes, golden, wolf-bright even in human form, swept across the gathered crowd with the kind of cold assessment that made grown warriors look at their feet. He wore simple clothes, black on black, no ornamentation. He didn't need it. You could feel his dominance pressing outward like a physical thing, heavy and absolute. Caliph's wolf stirred under her skin, restless and hungry, and the bond flared so sudden and so fierce she nearly staggered. It was him. Of course it was him. Beside Aaron stood his war commander, Darian Rook, a man almost as tall, leaner, with sharp features and eyes like chips of ice. He didn't speak, didn't move, just watched the crowd with the stillness of someone who'd spent years learning how to kill efficiently. And next to Darian, a woman Caliph recognized from gossip alone. Lyra Tenebris, the king's advisor, elegant and cold, her silver hair pulled back so tight it looked painful. Aaron took a step forward. The crowd seemed to pull back without actually moving. "You know why you're here," Aaron said. His voice was low, controlled, the kind of tone that didn't need volume to carry weight. The full moon reveals what the fates have chosen. Bonds form. They don't lie. They don't negotiate. His gaze moved across the room, landing on wolves one by one, and each time they dropped their eyes. "If your bond has surfaced, step forward now." A few wolves moved. A young male from the eastern packs, nervous, his hand gripping the wrist of a female who looked just as uncertain. An older pair, already bonded, renewing vows. They stepped into the moonlight, and the room watched as the light seemed to respond, brightening around them, acknowledging what was already written. Caliph's wolf snarled inside her chest. The bond was a living wire beneath her skin now, pulling her forward, demanding recognition. She didn't move, because this was insane. She was nobody. Aeron Draven was the Alpha King of the entire Northern Dominion, a bloodline so old and so pure the challengers didn't even try anymore. He could have anyone. He should have someone from the high families, someone whose name carried weight, whose bloodline meant alliances and strength. Not a stray from the edges of pack territory whose parents had died unremarkable deaths and left her with nothing. But the bond didn't care about logic. Aaron's eyes locked onto hers across the room. Everything stopped. The air thickened. The moonlight overhead seemed to flicker, then surge brighter, and Calith felt the pull between them snap taut like a rope jerked to its limit. Heat flooded her body, electric and undeniable. Her wolf rose fast, clawing toward the surface, recognizing him on every level. Scent, soul, something deeper than marrow. Mine. The word echoed in her head, primal and absolute. Mine. Aaron's expression didn't change, but his eyes flared gold, wolf surfacing, and she knew he felt it too. The room held its breath. "Step forward," Aaron said. It wasn't a request. Calith's legs moved before her brain caught up. She walked through the crowd and wolves parted around her like she carried a disease. Whispers started immediately, low and vicious. "That's her? Who is she?" "Nobody. I've never even seen her at court." "She can't be. Look at the bond. Look at his eyes." Calith kept walking. Her boots hit stone, then moonlight, and the moment she stepped fully into the silver glow, the bond roared to life. It was like being struck by lightning, every nerve in her body firing at once. She gasped, couldn't help it, and across from her, Aaron's jaw tightened. He felt it too. She could see it in the way his hands flexed at his sides, the way his wolf pressed against his control. She stopped 3 feet from him, close enough to see the gold flecks in his eyes, the faint scar along his jaw, the way his chest rose and fell just a fraction too fast. The bond between them was visible now. Not literally, but every wolf in the room could feel it, the way the air bent and shimmered, the way the moonlight seemed to gather around them both. Aaron stared at her. Calith stared back. Say it, she thought. Acknowledge it. End this. Aaron's lips parted. "I reject this bond." The words hit like a fist to the throat. Calith heard them, understood them, but her brain refused to process the meaning because it was impossible. You didn't reject a mate bond. It wasn't done. The bond was sacred, fated, the one thing in their world that couldn't be negotiated or denied. It was the foundation of pack law, the basis of every alliance, every bloodline, every... What? The word came out of her mouth before she could stop it, small and broken. Aaron's face was stone. "I reject the bond between us. I do not accept you as my mate." Gasps rippled outward through the crowd like a shock wave. Voices erupted, sharp and disbelieving. "He can't. That's not... The bond doesn't..." Calith couldn't breathe. The bond was still there, still burning, still pulling her toward him even as he stood there rejecting her in front of everyone. Her wolf howled inside her chest, confused and wounded and furious. Why? The question ripped out of her, too loud, too raw. Aaron's eyes flickered. Just for a second, something moved behind the gold, regret, maybe, or hesitation, but it was gone before she could name it. "Because you are not fit to stand beside me," he said. The room went silent. Not fit. The words hung in the air, ugly and final. Calith felt something inside her crack. Not break, not yet, but fracture. A thin line splitting down the center of her chest. "Not fit," she repeated. Her voice sounded distant, like it belonged to someone else. "No." Aaron's tone didn't waver. "You have no bloodline, no training, no alliances. You would be a liability to this court and a weakness to the Dominion." He paused, and when he spoke again, his voice was colder. "I need a queen who can stand in her own right. You are not that." Every word was a blade. Calith stood there, the bond screaming between them, her wolf thrashing under her skin, and every eye in the moon court watching her fall apart. She should have looked away, should have bowed her head, accepted it, walked out with whatever dignity she had left. Instead, she lifted her chin. "You're a coward." The room sucked in a collective breath. Aaron's eyes flashed. "What did you say?" "You heard me." Calith's voice shook, but she didn't back down. You felt the bond. I know you did. I can see it in your eyes, smell it on your skin. You're standing there lying to this entire court because you're too much of a coward to admit the fates chose someone you think is beneath you. Aaron moved. One step forward, and the dominance that rolled off him was suffocating. Lesser wolves would have dropped to the ground. Kalith's knees buckled, but she locked them, held her ground. You will not speak to me that way, Aaron said, and his voice was all wolf now, alpha command threaded through every syllable. Or what? Kalith's laugh was bitter, jagged. You'll reject me harder? I'm already nothing to you. What else can you take? For a long moment, Aaron just stared at her. The bond pulled taut between them, and Kalith could feel his wolf on the other side of it, snarling and possessive and confused. He wanted her. She could feel it. But he was choosing control over connection, image over truth. Leave, Aaron said finally. You are dismissed from this court. Kalith's breath hitched. If you remain in Northern Dominion territory, you will be removed by force. Aaron continued, his tone flat, emotionless. You are not welcome here. The fracture inside her widened. She looked around the room, hundreds of wolves staring at her, some with pity, most with contempt, a few with curiosity, like she was an animal that had done something unexpected, and they weren't sure if it was fascinating or pathetic. No one spoke for her. No one moved. Kalith turned. The moonlight felt cold now, hostile. She walked through it, spine straight, refusing to run even though every instinct screamed at her to shift and disappear into the forest. The crowd parted around her again, but this time it felt different, like they were pulling away from something contagious. She reached the massive double doors at the entrance and shoved them open. The night air hit her face, sharp and bitter. Behind her, the moon court remained silent, and then she heard it. Aaron's voice, quiet but clear, cutting through the stillness. The bond is severed. Let it be known. Something inside Kalith shattered. She didn't stop walking. 3 days later, Kalith was still breathing. She counted that as a win. The forest had swallowed her the moment she'd left the moon court, and she'd let it. She'd run until her lungs burned, shifted until her paws bled, and collapsed in a hollow beneath a fallen oak where the scent of earth and rot was strong enough to cover her own. She'd stayed there for a day, maybe 2. Time had gone soft and strange, waiting for the bond to fade. It didn't. It burned, constant, relentless, an ember lodged behind her sternum that wouldn't die no matter how much she willed it gone. She could feel Aaron on the other end of it, distant but there, a presence that made her wolf pace and snarl and whine in turns. He'd rejected her. He'd called her unfit. He'd severed the bond in front of everyone. But the bond itself hadn't listened. Kalith sat with her back against rough bark, staring at her hands. They were filthy, nails caked with dirt, knuckles scraped from where she'd punched a tree in a moment of rage she barely remembered. Her clothes were torn. Her hair was a mess. She looked like exactly what Aaron had called her. Nothing. Not fit to stand beside him, she muttered. Her voice was hoarse from disuse, from screaming into the dark when the bond flared and she couldn't take it anymore. Her wolf stirred, restless. Kalith closed her eyes. He's right, you know. We're nobody. The wolf snarled. We have no power, no allies, no... A branch snapped. Kalith was on her feet instantly, every sense sharpening. She wasn't armed, hadn't thought to grab anything when she'd fled. Stupid, careless. The kind of mistake that got lone wolves killed. A figure stepped out from between the trees. That's male, tall, moving with the kind of deliberate care that said he knew exactly where she was and had been watching for a while. Kalith's wolf rose fast, ready to shift, but the wind brought his scent and she froze. She knew that scent. You're a long way from court, Darian Rook said. He looked the same as he had in the moon court, sharp, controlled, dangerous. But out here in the forest, without the crowd and the moonlight and the ceremony, he looked more real. His dark coat was travel-worn, his boots muddy. There was a pack slung over one shoulder and a blade at his hip that wasn't decorative. Kalith's hands curled into fists. If Aaron sent you to make sure I left, you can tell him I'm gone. He didn't send me, Darian said. Then what do you want? Darian studied her for a long moment, his ice-chip eyes taking in the dirt, the torn clothes, the defensive stance. To talk. I'm not interested in talking. I think you are. Darian stepped closer, and Calith's wolf growled low in her chest. He stopped, held up a hand. Easy. I'm not here to fight you. Then what? I'm here because you're wasting an opportunity. Calith laughed, sharp and humorless. An opportunity, right. Being rejected and exiled is a real gift. It is, Darian said, and his tone was dead serious. If you're smart enough to use it. Calith stared at him. What the hell are you talking about? Darian glanced around the forest, then back at her. Not here. Too exposed. There's a place about 2 miles east, Old Hunter's Cabin. Meet me there in an hour. Why would I do that? Because you're angry, Darian said, and you should be. Aaron humiliated you in front of the entire court. He rejected a sacred bond because of politics and pride. You want him to regret it. Calith's breath caught. I want him to suffer, she said before she could stop herself. Darian's mouth curved into something that wasn't quite a smile. Then we want the same thing. He turned and walked back into the trees, moving silently despite his size. Calith stood there, heart pounding, mind racing. This was a trap. It had to be. Darian was Aaron's war commander, his right hand, loyal to the bone. There was no reason he'd be out here offering her, what? Alliance? Revenge? It didn't make sense, but the bond flared hot in her chest, and she thought about Aaron's face when he'd rejected her, the coldness in his eyes, the certainty. Not fit. Calith started walking east. Yes. The cabin was exactly where Darian had said it would be. A small, weathered structure tucked into a clearing, half collapsed on one side but still standing. Smoke rose from a chimney that looked like it might fall apart if you breathed on it wrong. Calith approached carefully, every sense alert. The door was cracked open, firelight spilling out. She pushed it wider and stepped inside. The interior was sparse. A fireplace. A rough table. 2 chairs. Darian stood by the fire, his coat off now, sleeves rolled up. He'd set a pack on the table. Supplies, from the look of it. Food, water, a map. He glanced at her. You came. I'm here, Calith said. Doesn't mean I trust you. Good. You shouldn't. Darian gestured to the other chair. Sit. Calith didn't move. Say what you came to say. Darian regarded her for a moment, then nodded. Aaron made a mistake. Obviously. No, I mean a strategic mistake. Darian leaned against the table, arms crossed. Rejecting you wasn't just cruel, it was stupid. The bond doesn't form without reason. The fates don't choose mates randomly. You were supposed to stand beside him, and he threw that away because he's too proud to see past bloodlines and court politics. And you care about this why? Because I've served Aaron for 10 years, Darian said, and I've watched him make decisions based on what the court expects instead of what's right. He's a good king in a lot of ways, strong, strategic, ruthless when he needs to be. But he's also trapped by the system he inherited. He'll never change it from the inside. Calith's eyes narrowed. You want to change it. I want to break it, Darian said flatly. The Northern Dominion is built on hierarchy and tradition that stopped making sense decades ago. Highborn wolves hold power because their ancestors did. Lowborn wolves stay low no matter how strong they are. It's a system designed to keep people in their place. He paused. You were rejected because you didn't fit that system. That's exactly why you're valuable. Calith's wolf stirred, interested despite herself. Valuable how? Darian straightened. Aaron rejected his mate. That's not just a scandal. It's a crack in his authority. Wolves are already whispering. Some think he's weak for denying the fates. Others think he's cruel. Either way, he's vulnerable right now in a way he's never been before. Good. It gets better, Darian said. You still have the bond. I can see it on you. You can feel him, can't you? Calith's jaw tightened. She didn't answer, but Darian's expression said he didn't need her to. That bond makes you dangerous, Darian continued, because you're connected to the most powerful wolf in the Dominion, but you're not bound by his court or his rules. You're free. And if you were to align with someone else, someone with ambition and resources, you could become a very real threat to Aaron's stability. Understanding hit like cold water. You want me to stand with you? Yes. Calith laughed, harsh and disbelieving. You're his war commander, his most loyal soldier, and you want to betray him. I want to force him to be better, Darian corrected, or watch him fall. Either works. Why? Calith demanded. What did he do to you? Darian's expression hardened. He rejected you because you weren't high-born enough. 3 years ago, he passed over my sister for a position she was qualified for because her bloodline wasn't pure enough. Last year, he executed a wolf for challenging a highborn who'd been stealing from lowborn families because the challenge violated court protocol. Aaron isn't malicious, but he values order over justice, and I'm done pretending that's acceptable. The words hung in the air. Calith's mind was racing. This was insane. Darian was offering her a path to relevance, to power, to revenge, but it meant stepping into a war she didn't understand, aligning with a man she barely knew, and betting everything on the chance that she could hurt Aaron more than he'd hurt her. It was reckless. It was dangerous. It was exactly what her wolf wanted. "What's the plan?" she asked. Darian's eyes gleamed. "We make you visible. Right now, you're a rejected mate hiding in the woods. Tragic, but forgettable. We change that. We put you in front of other packs, other alphas. We let them see what Aaron threw away. And when the bond between you starts affecting him, and it will, the longer you're apart, we make sure everyone knows it. You want to parade me around like some kind of trophy." "I want to position you as an alternative," Darian said. "Aaron's strength is his image. Perfect king, perfect control. But you're proof that image is cracking, and if you stand beside me publicly as my ally, maybe more, it sends a message that Aaron's rule isn't as absolute as he thinks." Calith's pulse kicked. "Maybe more?" Darian met her eyes. "The bond doesn't have to be romantic to be powerful. If you and I present a united front, people will talk. They'll wonder, and Aaron will feel it. The bond might be one-sided right now, but jealousy isn't logical. If he thinks you've moved on, it'll eat at him. And if it doesn't, then we build our own power base," Darian said simply. "Either way, you stop being a victim and start being a player." Calith stared at him. She should walk away. This was manipulation, strategy, using her pain as a weapon. Darian wasn't offering her friendship or comfort. He was offering her a role in a game she didn't fully understand. But the alternative was hiding in the woods, waiting for the bond to fade, hoping the humiliation would eventually stop burning. "If I do this," Calith said slowly, "I'm not your pawn. I make my own decisions." "Agreed. And if I want out, I walk. No threats, no consequences." Darian hesitated, then nodded. "You have my word." Calith took a breath. This was a cliff, and she was about to jump. "Then let's make him regret it," she said. Darian smiled. It was sharp and cold and absolutely genuine. "Good," he said. "We start tomorrow." Okay. Somewhere in the northern Dominion, in a castle built from stone and ambition, Aaron Draven stood at a window overlooking dark forests. The bond pulled. It had been pulling for 3 days, constant, insistent, a low-grade burn that he couldn't ignore. He told the court it was severed. He'd meant it when he said it. But the bond didn't care what he'd said. It was still there, tethering him to a woman he'd rejected, a mate he couldn't afford. Calith Voss. He could feel her out there somewhere, distant but present. The bond didn't give him her exact location, but it gave him her anger, her pain, the way her wolf was pacing and snarling and refusing to submit. She'd called him a coward. She'd been right. Aaron's hands tightened on the windowsill. He'd made the right choice. The court would never have accepted her. She had no bloodline, no training, no political value. Bringing her in as his mate would have weakened his position, invited challenges, destabilized alliances he'd spent years building. It had been the logical decision, the smart decision. So why did it feel like he'd ripped out part of his own chest? Behind him, the door opened. Aaron didn't turn. "You should be sleeping," Lyra said. Her voice was calm, measured, the tone she used when she was about to say something he didn't want to hear. "I'm fine." "You look like hell." Aaron finally turned. Lyra stood in the doorway, silver hair loose around her shoulders, arms crossed. She'd been his advisor for 5 years, and in that time, she'd learned to read him better than anyone. "The bond isn't fading," Aaron said. "I know. It should have faded by now." "Not necessarily." Lyra stepped into the room, closing the door behind her. "You rejected her, but she didn't accept the rejection. The bond is still active on her end. As long as she holds on to it, you're tied together." Aaron's jaw tightened. "So what do I do?" "Wait. Eventually she'll let go. She'll have to. And if she doesn't?" Lyra was quiet for a moment. Then you'll have a problem. Aaron looked back out the window. The moon was waning now, but still bright enough to cast shadows across the forest. Somewhere out there, Calith was alone. He'd exiled her, stripped her of protection, sent her into territory she didn't know. She could be hurt, killed. Worse. His wolf snarled, possessive and furious. She's not yours, Aaron reminded it. You gave her up. But the bond pulsed, and deep in his chest, something twisted. There's something else, Lyra said carefully. Aaron turned. What? Darian left court yesterday. Didn't say where he was going, didn't take guards. Aaron frowned. So? So he's your war commander, and he disappeared right after you rejected your mate. Lyra's eyes were sharp. You don't find that strange? Darian's loyal. Darian's ambitious, Lyra corrected, and he's been questioning your decisions more often lately. I'm just saying, keep an eye on him. Aaron wanted to argue, but something cold settled in his gut. The bond pulled again, sharper this time. And for the first time since the rejection, Aaron felt something else through it. Not pain, not anger, determination. Calith was planning something. Aaron's wolf rose fast, protective and territorial, and absolutely certain that whatever she was doing, he wasn't going to like it. Find Darian, Aaron said quietly. Lyra's expression shifted. You think he's with her? I think I need to know where he is. Lyra nodded and left without another word. Aaron stood alone in the room, the bond burning in his chest, and for the first time in years, he felt something he'd almost forgotten. Uncertainty. Vamde. The neutral tavern sat on the border between three territories, Northern Dominion, Eastern Reach, and the Wildlands. It was old, built from thick timber and riverstone, with a reputation for being the one place wolves from different packs could meet without starting a war. Fights were forbidden inside, challenges had to be issued outside, and the proprietor, a grizzled wolf named Kyle, who'd lost his alpha status decades ago in a fight he refused to talk about, enforced those rules with extreme prejudice. Calith walked in 2 steps behind Darian, and every head in the room turned. The tavern was packed. Wolves from all over, some in human form, some halfway shifted, all of them drinking, talking, watching each other with the wariness of predators forced into close quarters. The air smelled like ale and smoke and tension. Darian moved through the crowd like he owned the place, nodding at a few wolves he apparently knew, ignoring the rest. Calith followed, trying to look confident when every instinct screamed at her to run. She was walking into a room full of wolves who could smell the bond on her, who would recognize what she was the moment they paid attention. Rejected mate. Exile. Liability. They reached a table in the back corner and Darian sat, gesturing for her to do the same. Calith lowered herself into the chair, back to the wall, eyes on the room. Relax, Darian said quietly. I'm in a room full of wolves who could kill me without breaking a sweat, Calith muttered. Relaxing isn't an option. They won't touch you, not here, and not with me beside you. Calith shot him a look. Your reputation's that good? My reputation's that violent. Darian flagged down a server, ordered 2 drinks. When the wolf left, he leaned back in his chair, casual and alert at the same time. This is where it starts. People need to see you as more than Aaron's reject. They need to see you as someone with your own power. I don't have power. Not yet, Darian agreed. But you will. The drinks arrived. Calith took hers and drank without tasting it. The bond was a constant hum in her chest, distracting and irritating. She wondered if Aaron could feel her right now, if he knew she was sitting in a neutral tavern with his war commander planning. The door opened. The temperature in the room dropped. Calith looked up and her heart stopped. Aaron Draven stood in the doorway. He wasn't alone. Lyra was beside him, and behind them, 4 guards in Northern Dominion colors. But it was Aaron everyone looked at. He filled the space without trying, dominance rolling off him in waves so thick the nearest wolves physically leaned back. His eyes swept the room and landed on Calith. The bond exploded. It flared so bright and hot that Calith gasped, her hands gripping the edge of the table. Across the room, Aaron's expression didn't change, but his eyes flashed gold, and she knew he felt it too. He started walking toward her. The crowd parted. Kalith's wolf surged, torn between submission and aggression, between running to him and running from him. She forced herself to stay seated, spine straight, even as her pulse hammered in her throat. Aaron stopped in front of the table. His gaze flicked to Darian. "Commander?" "Your Majesty," Darian said smoothly. He didn't stand. Aaron's attention shifted back to Kalith. "We need to talk." "No," Kalith said. Her voice shook, but the word was clear. Aaron's jaw tightened. "That wasn't a request. And I'm not one of your subjects." Kalith met his eyes, forcing herself not to look away, even though every instinct screamed at her to submit. "You exiled me, remember? I don't answer to you anymore." The bond pulled between them, visible now in the way the air seemed to shimmer, the way wolves around them were staring, wide-eyed and tense. "You're sitting with my war commander in a neutral tavern," Aaron said, his tone low and dangerous. "If you think that's not my concern, you're wrong." "Darian can sit with whoever he wants," Kalith shot back. "So can I." Aaron's eyes narrowed. He looked at Darian again. "Is that what this is? You're using her to make a point?" "I'm not using anyone," Darian said. "Kalith is here of her own choice." "Kalith doesn't know what she's doing." "Kalith is sitting right here," Kalith snapped, "and she knows exactly what she's doing." Aaron's control cracked, just for a second, but she saw it, the flash of frustration, the way his hands flexed like he wanted to grab her and drag her out of the tavern. "You're making a mistake." "I already made one," Kalith said coldly. "I walked into the moon court thinking the bond meant something. You taught me better." The words landed like a slap. Aaron stared at her, and the bond between them thrummed with something sharp and painful. Then he stepped closer, leaning down until his face was inches from hers. "You want to play games?" His voice was barely above a whisper, but it cut through the noise of the tavern like a blade. "Fine, but understand this. You're mine. The bond says so. The fates say so. You can sit here with Darian and pretend you've moved on, but you and I both know it's a lie." Kalith's breath hitched. "I rejected you to protect you," Aaron continued, his eyes locked on hers. "The court would have torn you apart. But if you think that means I've let you go, you're wrong." He straightened, gaze shifting to Darian. "Watch yourself, Commander. You're walking a very thin line." Then he turned and walked out of the tavern, Lyra and the guards following. The door slammed shut. The room erupted into whispers. Kalith sat there, hands shaking, the bond still burning hot in her chest. Darian leaned forward. "That," he said quietly, "was perfect." Kalith looked at him, breathless and furious and confused. "Perfect?" He's rattled, possessive, jealous. Darian's eyes gleamed. He just claimed you in front of half the territory while simultaneously trying to deny he cares. Every wolf in this room is going to spread that story by morning. Kalith's mind was racing. He said he rejected me to protect me. Maybe he did, Darian said. Or maybe that's what he's telling himself to justify it. Either way, he's losing control. And that's exactly what we need. Kalith drank the rest of her ale in one long pull. Her hands were still shaking. Outside, the moon climbed higher, and somewhere in the forest, something ancient stirred beneath the mountains, drawn by the taste of fractured bonds and rising power. The game had begun, and no one, not Aaron, not Kalith, not even Darian, understood what they'd just awakened. The whispers started before dawn. Kalith woke to the sound of them. Low voices outside the room Darian had secured for her above the tavern, wolves passing in the hallway, their words just loud enough to carry through the thin walls. Saw it myself, the bond flared between them. King looked ready to kill someone. She didn't even flinch. Kalith stared at the ceiling, watching pale morning light creep across cracked plaster. Her body ached like she'd been in a fight. The bond was quieter now, but still there. A dull throb behind her ribs that spiked every time she thought about Aaron's face last night. The way he'd leaned in close, claimed her with words while simultaneously denying her with actions. You're mine. Her wolf had wanted to believe it, still wanted to believe it. Kalith sat up, shoving the thought away. She was done believing anything Aaron Draven said. A knock at the door. It's me, Darian's voice. Kalith pulled on her boots and opened the door. Darian stood there looking like he'd already been awake for hours, dressed in dark traveling clothes, 2 cups of something hot in his hands. Drink this, he said, handing her one. Kalith took it. Coffee, bitter and strong. She drank it anyway. What's the plan? We move. Darian stepped into the room, closing the door. Word spreading fast. By noon, every pack within 100 miles is going to know what happened last night. Some will see you as weak. Others will see opportunity. Opportunity, Kalith repeated flatly. A rejected mate with an active bond to the Alpha King? Darian's expression was sharp. You're a walking political weapon. Alphas will want to use you, control you, or eliminate you. We need to position you before someone else does. Kalith's stomach tightened. Position me how? Eastern Reach. There's a gathering in 3 days. Alphas from the outer territories, negotiations over hunting grounds and trade routes. Neutral ground, but barely. It's where power gets tested without open war. Darian paused. We go there. We make sure every alpha in attendance sees you standing beside me, allied and unbowed. And then what? Then we wait for Aaron to respond, Darian said. Because he will. Last night proved he's not as detached as he pretends. Kalith remembered the way Aaron's eyes had flashed gold, the barely controlled violence in his voice. He said he rejected me to protect me. Maybe, Darian's tone was neutral. Or maybe he's rewriting the narrative to justify what he did. Either way, it doesn't matter. What matters is that he's watching you now, and every move you make is a move in this game. I didn't ask for this game. No, Darian agreed. But you're in it anyway. The only question is whether you're going to be a piece or a player. Kalith drank more coffee, thinking. 3 days ago, she'd been nothing. A stray on the edge of pack life, invisible and irrelevant. Now she was apparently valuable enough that wolves were whispering about her. The Darian thought she could shift political power. It was insane. It was also the only path forward that didn't end with her alone in the woods, waiting for the bond to kill her slowly. Fine, Kalith said. Eastern Reach. But I need to know what I'm walking into. Darian's mouth curved slightly. Smart. I'll brief you on the road. We leave in an hour. He turned to go, then stopped. Kalith, what Aaron said last night about protecting you, don't let it get in your head. It won't. Darian studied her for a moment, then nodded and left. Kalith stood alone in the small room, the bond humming quietly in her chest. You're mine. She crushed the coffee cup in her hand, felt the ceramic crack. No, she thought, I'm not. They traveled east through forests that grew denser and wilder the further they went from Northern Dominion territory. Darian kept a brutal pace, and Kalith matched it without complaint. Her wolf was restless, eager for movement, for action, for anything that wasn't sitting still and feeling the bond pull. They didn't talk much. When they did, Darian briefed her in short, efficient sentences. Eastern Reach is ruled by 3 alphas who can't stand each other but haven't killed each other yet. Marcus Thorne controls the northern section, old, smart, ruthless. Celine Vale has the south, younger, ambitious, willing to make alliances others won't. And Garrett Stone holds the middle, military-minded, paranoid, sees threats everywhere. Which one are we meeting? All of them. The gathering's supposed to be about trade, but it's really about territory. They'll all be looking for leverage, and I'm leverage. You're more than that, Darian said. You're proof that Aaron's not infallible. That alone makes you valuable. Kalith didn't answer. The bond flared suddenly, sharp and insistent, and she stumbled. Darian caught her arm. What is it? Bond, Kalith managed. Her chest felt tight, like something was squeezing her lungs. It pulled. Not physically, but she felt the direction. North. Back toward Northern Dominion territory. Aaron. He was angry. She could feel it through the bond, a low, simmering rage that made her wolf whine and pace. Something had happened. Something that involved her. He knows we're moving, Kalith said. Darian's expression darkened. How? I don't know, but he's furious. They stood there in the middle of the forest path, and Kalith waited for the bond to settle. It didn't. It kept pulling, insistent, demanding she turn around and go back. Ignore it, Darian said quietly. I'm trying. Try harder. His voice wasn't unkind, but it was firm. That's what he wants. For you to come running the moment he pulls the leash. Don't give him the satisfaction. Kalith gritted her teeth and started walking again. The bond screamed at her the entire way. Asen. The Eastern Reach settlement was built into the side of a ravine, structures carved directly into stone and connected by narrow bridges that swayed in the wind. Wolves moved along them with casual confidence, barely glancing down at the 100-foot drop below. Kalith's stomach turned just looking at it. "Stay close," Darian said, "and don't show weakness. These wolves respect strength above everything else." They crossed the first bridge, wooden planks that creaked ominously, and entered the main gathering hall. It was carved from the rock itself, ceiling high and rough, with torches burning along the walls. Wolves filled the space, grouped by territory, eyeing each other with barely concealed hostility. At the far end, 3 figures sat at a long table. Marcus Thorne was exactly what Darian had described, old, with silver threading through dark hair, eyes sharp and calculating. Celine Vale sat beside him, younger, beautiful in a predatory way, her posture relaxed but ready. And Garrett Stone completed the trio, broad-shouldered and scarred, watching the room like he expected an attack any second. Conversations died as Kalith and Darian entered. Every eye turned. Kalith felt the weight of their attention like a physical thing. They could smell the bond on her, see it in the way she moved. Rejected mate, exile, the stray walking beside the Northern Dominion's war commander. Darian kept moving, and Kalith followed. They stopped in front of the table. "Darian Rook," Marcus said. His voice was smooth, cultured. "This is unexpected." Marcus, Celine, Garrett, Darian nodded to each in turn. "I'm here to discuss trade routes." "Are you?" Celine said. Her gaze slid to Kalith. "And who's this?" "Kalith Voss," Darian said before Kalith could speak. "My ally." Garrett snorted. "Your ally? That's what we're calling rejected mates now?" Kalith's jaw tightened. "Careful, Garrett," Darian said quietly. "Insults don't suit you." "Neither does treason," Garrett shot back. "You're Aeron's war commander. What are you doing parading his cast-off around Eastern Reach?" The room went very still. Kalith felt her wolf rise, hot and angry. She opened her mouth to respond, but Darian's hand touched her arm, a brief warning. "Kalith isn't a cast-off," Darian said. "She's a wolf with an active bond to the Alpha King. That makes her politically relevant." "It makes her a liability," Marcus corrected. Aaron rejected her in front of the entire Moon Court, publicly, brutally. She has no status, no pack, no protection. Bringing her here is either brilliant or suicidal, and I'm not sure which. "Maybe both," Celine said. She was smiling, but her eyes were cold. "What exactly do you want, Darian?" "Recognition," Darian said. "Kalith stands with me. I want that acknowledged." "Why would we acknowledge anything?" Garrett demanded. "She's nothing," Kalith's control snapped. "I'm standing right here," she said, her voice cutting through the room. "If you've got something to say about me, say it to my face." Garrett's eyes narrowed. "You want me to say it to your face? Fine. You're a rejected mate with delusions of relevance. Aaron threw you away because you're worthless, and now you're clinging to his war commander hoping someone will give a damn. But here's the truth. No one cares. You're a footnote in someone else's story." The words hit like fists. Kalith's wolf snarled, pushing against her skin, demanding she shift and rip Garrett's throat out. But she didn't. Instead, she stepped forward, closing the distance between her and the table until she was close enough to see the surprise flicker in Garrett's eyes. "You're right about one thing," Kalith said quietly. "Aaron rejected me, in front of everyone. And you know what? It was the best thing he ever did for me." Garrett blinked. "Because now I'm not bound by his court or his rules," Kalith continued. "I don't have to play nice with wolves like you who mistake cruelty for strength. I don't owe anyone anything. And that bond you're all so worried about? It goes both ways. Aaron can feel me just like I can feel him. Which means every time I stand here, every time I align with someone who isn't him, he knows." She leaned in, her voice dropping. "So call me worthless. Call me a footnote. But understand that I'm the one thing Aaron Draven can't control, and that terrifies him." Silence. Marcus was watching her with new interest. Celine's smile had shifted into something genuine. Even Garrett looked uncertain. Then Marcus laughed. It was a low, rough sound, but real. "I like her," he said. She's got spine. Spine doesn't win wars, Garrett muttered. No, Celine agreed, but it starts them. She looked at Calith. You want recognition? Fine, you have mine. An ally of Darian's is worth watching, at least. Garrett scowled, but didn't argue. Marcus inclined his head. Agreed, for now. Darian's expression didn't change, but Calith felt the tension ease slightly. Then we're done here, Darian said. Not quite, Marcus said. He stood, walking around the table until he was directly in front of Calith. Up close, she could see the scars on his hands, the weight of years in his eyes. A word of advice, girl. You're playing a dangerous game. Aaron's not the type to forgive betrayal, and you're walking a line that looks a lot like it. I didn't betray him, Calith said. He rejected me first. Doesn't matter how it started, Marcus said. Matters how it ends. And right now, you're standing in Eastern Reach with his war commander while the bond between you is still active. That's going to provoke a response. Make sure you're ready for it. Before Calith could answer, the door to the hall slammed open. A wolf burst in, breathing hard, covered in road dust. Marcus, the wolf gasped. Riders from the north, Northern Dominion banners. Every head in the room turned. How many? Marcus demanded. 20, maybe more. Led by... The wolf hesitated. Led by the Alpha King himself. The room erupted. Calith's heart stopped. Darian grabbed her arm. We need to leave. Now! But it was too late. The sound of boots echoed through the stone corridors outside, heavy and deliberate. Voices shouted orders. And then the presence hit, dominant so thick it pressed against every wolf in the room like a weight. Aaron Draven stepped into the hall. He wasn't alone. Lyra was at his side, and behind them, a contingent of Northern Dominion warriors, armed and ready. But it was Aaron who commanded attention. He looked like he'd ridden hard and fast, his clothes dusty, jaw tight, eyes blazing gold. Those eyes found Calith instantly. The bond detonated. Calith gasped, her knees buckling. The connection between them surged so violently it felt like lightning in her veins. Across the room, Aaron's hands clenched into fists, and she knew he felt it too. Calith, Aaron said. His voice was low, controlled, but edged with something dangerous. We're leaving. No, Calith said. The word came out shaky but firm. Aaron's expression darkened. That wasn't a request. I don't care. Calith forced herself to stand straight, even though the bond was screaming at her to go to him. I'm not going anywhere with you. You're making a mistake. I already made one, Calith shot back. I let you humiliate me in front of the entire Moon Court. I'm not making that mistake again. Aaron moved forward, and the crowd scattered. He crossed the room in long strides, stopping directly in front of her. Up close, she could see the exhaustion in his face, the tension in his shoulders. He looked like he hadn't slept since the tavern. Do you have any idea what you're doing? Aaron's voice was quiet, meant only for her. Aligning with Darian, walking into Eastern Reach, making yourself a target. I'm already a target, Calith interrupted. You made sure of that when you rejected me. I rejected you to protect you. Then stop protecting me. The words burst out of her, loud and raw. I don't want your protection. I don't want your explanations. I want you to leave me alone. Aaron's jaw tightened. I can't. Why not? Because you're mine, Aaron said, and the bond flared between them, violent and possessive. The fates chose you for me. I can feel you every second of every day. I know when you're angry, when you're hurt, when you're standing in a room full of rival alphas pretending you're not terrified. You think I can just walk away from that? You already did, Calith said, her voice cracked. In the Moon Court, you walked away. I made a mistake. The words hung in the air. Calith stared at him. What? I made a mistake, Aaron repeated. His eyes were locked on hers, gold and intense. Rejecting you was the wrong choice. I knew it the moment you walked out of that hall. But I was too proud to admit it, too trapped by what the court expected. And now you show up here with an army and expect me to just forgive you? Calith's laugh was bitter. You don't get to decide when this matters, Aaron. You don't get to reject me one day and claim me the next. I'm not claiming you, Aaron said. I'm asking you to come home. I don't have a home, Calith said. You exiled me, remember? Aaron's control cracked. His hand shot out, gripping her arm, and the bond surged so powerfully that Calith's vision whited out for a second. She felt his wolf on the other side of it, desperate and furious, and absolutely certain that she belonged with him. Let her go, Darian said. Aaron's head turned slowly. His gaze landed on Darian, and the temperature in the room dropped. Stay out of this, Commander, Aaron said. She's my ally, Darian said calmly. That makes it my business. Your ally? Aaron's voice was soft, dangerous. Is that what you're calling it? What are you implying? I'm implying, Aaron said, each word precise, that you've been undermining me for weeks, disappearing from court, meeting with her in secret, bringing her to Eastern Reach like some kind of political prize. So I'll ask you directly, Darian, are you trying to start a war? I'm trying to give her a choice, Darian said. Something you never did. Aaron's grip on Calith's arm tightened. She's my mate. She's a person, Darian countered. And you rejected her. You don't get to take that back just because it's inconvenient. The two men stared at each other, dominance colliding in the space between them. Around the room, wolves shifted nervously, hands moving toward weapons. Calith wrenched her arm free. Both men looked at her. Stop, Calith said. Her voice was shaking. Both of you, just stop. I'm not a prize you get to fight over. I'm not a political move. The bond flared again, sharper this time, and with it came something else. Pain. Not hers. Aaron's. Calith's breath caught. She could feel it through the bond, a deep, aching hurt that had nothing to do with physical injury. It was loneliness, regret, the kind of pain that came from knowing you'd destroyed something irreplaceable. Aaron, she whispered. His eyes met hers, and for just a second, the Alpha King disappeared. What was left was just a man who'd made the wrong choice and didn't know how to fix it. Then Lara stepped forward. Your Majesty, she said quietly. We should go. This isn't the place. Aaron didn't move. Calith, please. The word broke something in her. She'd never heard him say please, never heard him sound anything but certain. I can't, Calith said. The words hurt coming out. I can't just come back and pretend everything's fine. You hurt me, Aaron. You rejected me in front of everyone, and now you're asking me to trust you again. I don't know how to do that. Then let me prove it, Aaron said. Give me a chance to... No. The word was final. Aaron's expression shuddered. The vulnerability disappeared, replaced by the cold control she recognized. Fine, he said. Stay here. Ally with Darian. Make yourself a target for every ambitious alpha in the territory. But understand this. I will not let you get hurt. I will not let anyone use you. And if you think I'm going to stand back and watch you destroy yourself, you're wrong. You don't have a say anymore, Calith said. I have the bond, Aaron said. That gives me every say. He turned to Marcus. She's under my protection. Anyone who touches her answers to me. Marcus raised an eyebrow. Bold claim for someone who just rejected her. The rejection was political, Aaron said flatly. The bond is permanent. Those are the facts. Spread them however you want. He looked at Darian one more time. We're going to have a conversation about this, Commander, soon. Looking forward to it, Darian said. Aaron's gaze returned to Calith. For a long moment, he just looked at her, and the bond pulled between them, painful and insistent. Then he walked out. The Northern Dominion warriors followed. The hall erupted into noise the moment the door closed. Calith stood there, shaking, the bond still burning in her chest. Marcus whistled low. Well, that was entertaining. Entertaining, Celine repeated. That's one word for it. The Alpha King just rode into Eastern Reach, claimed a woman he publicly rejected, and threatened every wolf in the territory. This is going to have consequences. Good, Garrett said. Let there be consequences. I'm tired of Aaron acting like he owns the entire continent. Darian was watching Calith. Are you all right? Calith didn't know how to answer that. The bond was a mess of conflicting emotions, anger, longing, pain, something that felt dangerously close to hope. I need air, she said. She walked out before anyone could stop her. Walk it. The night air was cold and sharp, biting against her skin. Calith stood on one of the narrow bridges, gripping the rope railing, staring down into darkness below. The bond was quieter now, but still there, always there. She could feel Aaron somewhere north, moving away. The distance helped, but not much. Footsteps behind her. I said I needed to be alone, Kalith said without turning. I know. Darian's voice. He stopped a few feet away. But I needed to make sure you weren't about to jump. I'm not. Good. They stood in silence for a moment. He meant it, Kalith said finally, when he said rejecting me was a mistake. Maybe. You don't believe him? I believe he regrets the consequences, Darian said carefully. Whether he regrets the choice itself is harder to say. Aaron's good at rewriting his own narrative when it suits him. Kalith turned to look at him. You really hate him, don't you? I don't hate him, Darian said. I'm disappointed in him. There's a difference. What did he do to you? Kalith asked. Really? You said your sister, but there's more to it than that. Darian was quiet for a long time. When he finally spoke, his voice was different, raw. 5 years ago, I had a mate, he said. Her name was Kara. She wasn't high-born, but she was strong, smart, perfect for me. The bond formed, and I thought, finally, something good. Kalith's chest tightened. What happened? The court happened, Darian said. They didn't think she was suitable for a war commander, not prestigious enough. Aaron agreed. He told me I could keep her as a companion, but not as a mate, not publicly. I refused, Darian continued. Told him I'd rather step down than deny the bond. So he gave me a choice, my position or my mate. He paused. I chose my position. And Kara left. I haven't seen her since. Kalith stared at him. Aaron made you choose. Yes. And you chose him. I chose power, Darian corrected. I told myself it was pragmatic, strategic, that I could do more good as war commander than I could as some low-ranking wolf with a mate the court didn't respect. His jaw tightened. I was wrong, and I've regretted it every day since. Is that why you're helping me? Kalith asked. Because I'm your second chance? Partly, Darian admitted. But also because you deserve better than what Aaron gave you, and because someone needs to prove that the bond matters more than politics. Kalith turned back to the darkness below. What if he's telling the truth? What if he really does regret it? Then he'll prove it, Darian said. Through actions, not words. Until then, you keep moving forward. Forward into what? That's up to you. Before Kalith could respond, a howl split the night. It was distant but clear, rising from the north. One howl, then another, then dozens, overlapping into a chorus. Kalith's wolf stirred, recognizing the pattern. A hunt call. Darian's expression went hard. No. What is it? Aaron just issued a hunt order, Darian said grimly. He's calling every wolf in the Northern Dominion to bring you back. Kalith's blood went cold. He can't do that. He's the Alpha King. He can do whatever he wants. Darian grabbed her arm. We need to leave. Now. If Northern Dominion wolves are hunting you, Eastern Reach won't stay neutral. They ran. Behind them, more howls rose into the night, and the hunt began. Tchesk. By dawn, riders flooded the forests. Kalith and Darian moved fast, staying off main paths, avoiding territories where Northern Dominion had influence. But the hunt call spread faster than they could run. Wolves carried it through valleys and over mountains, and within hours, every pack in 3 territories knew. Bring back Kalith Voss, alive, and answer to the Alpha King personally. Some wolves hunted because they were loyal. Others hunted because they wanted the favor of the most powerful alpha on the continent. And a few hunted because they saw opportunity in the chaos. Kalith felt them converging like wolves circling prey. We can't outrun this, she said, breathless. I know, Darian said. We need to change the game. How? By making you too valuable to hand over. They stopped in a clearing and Darian pulled out a small wrapped package from his pack. He handed it to Kalith. What is this? Open it. Kalith unwrapped the cloth. Inside was a pendant, old, silver, carved with symbols she didn't recognize. Where did you get this? She asked. My grandmother, Darian said. She was a seer, not powerful, but she had moments of clarity. Before she died, she told me to keep this. Said it would matter when the old bloodlines woke. Kalith's skin prickled. Old bloodlines. There are stories, Darian said carefully, about wolves from before the packs, before territories and courts, wolves who ruled not through dominance, but through something older, bloodlines that carried power in their bones. Don't you? Darian's eyes were intent. You walked into the moon court as nobody, and the Alpha King's bond snapped to you instantly. Not to a highborn female, not to someone bred for power. To you. Why? Calith's heart was pounding. I don't know. Maybe it's time to find out, Darian said. He gestured to the pendant. Put it on. Calith hesitated, then slipped the chain over her head. The moment the silver touched her skin, something shifted. It was subtle at first, a warmth spreading from the pendant, sinking into her chest. Then it grew stronger, hotter, and the bond with Aaron suddenly flared so bright she cried out. But it wasn't just the bond, there was something else. Power. It rose from somewhere deep inside her, ancient and wild, like something sleeping had finally stirred awake. Calith's vision blurred, and for a second she saw mountains, old stones, wolves gathering under a moon that looked wrong, too large, too close, a throne carved from a single piece of silver stone, a woman standing on it, silver light pouring from her body, and every wolf kneeling. The vision snapped. Calith gasped, stumbling back. Darian caught her. What did you see? Calith's hands were shaking. There was a throne, and wolves, and silver light erupted from her body. It burst outward in a wave, bright and blinding, and every tree in the clearing bent away from it. The power was immense, overwhelming, and it poured from Calith like she was a vessel that had finally cracked open. Darian swore, shielding his eyes. The light faded as quickly as it had come, leaving Calith standing in the center of the clearing, breathing hard, the pendant glowing faintly against her chest. What was that? She whispered. Darian was staring at her like he'd never seen her before. That, he said slowly, was proof. Proof of what? That you're not just Aaron's mate, Darian said. You're something older, something the fates have been waiting for. Before Calith could respond, howls erupted around them. Close. Too close. Wolves burst into the clearing from 3 directions, Northern Dominion hunters, weapons drawn, eyes locked on Calith. But they stopped. Every single one of them stopped at the edge of the clearing, staring, because Calith was still glowing. Just faintly, but enough. Silver light traced along her skin, and her eyes, when she looked at them, had gone luminous. The lead hunter, a scarred male Calith didn't recognize, dropped to one knee, then another, then all of them. What? Calith started. They can see it, Darian said quietly. The bloodline, the power. They're not hunting you anymore, Calith. They're recognizing you. More wolves appeared at the edge of the clearing. Not just Northern Dominion, Eastern Reach, Wildlands. Packs Calith didn't even know existed. They'd all come for the hunt. But now they stood frozen, staring at the silver light still flickering around her body. One of them, a female with Eastern Reach markings, spoke first. The crown, she whispered. The old stories, it's real. The words rippled through the crowd. And somewhere far to the north, through a bond that refused to break, Aaron Draven felt the surge of power and understood. He hadn't just rejected his mate, he'd rejected his queen. The silver light faded slowly, like dawn retreating back into night, leaving Calith standing in a clearing full of kneeling wolves who wouldn't meet her eyes. Her hands were still shaking. The power, whatever it had been, had drained back into her bones, but she could feel it there, coiled and waiting. The pendant against her chest was warm, almost hot, pulsing in rhythm with her heartbeat. Get up, Calith said. Her voice came out steadier than she felt. None of them moved. I said get up. Louder this time, edged with something that might have been panic or fury or both. The scarred hunter from Northern Dominion raised his head slowly. We can't, my lady. The bloodline? I don't care about bloodlines, Calith snapped. Stand up, all of you. They rose, but the way they looked at her had changed, not with contempt or pity anymore, with fear, with reverence, with the kind of wariness people reserved for things they didn't understand but knew could kill them. Calith's wolf paced under her skin, restless and confused. This wasn't right. She was nobody. A stray. The same wolf who'd scrubbed floors and stayed invisible and been rejected in front of hundreds because she wasn't good enough. The pendant pulsed again, and warmth spread through her chest. "Darian," she said without looking at him, "what just happened?" "You woke up," Darian said quietly. He was watching the crowd, hand resting on his blade. "Or something in you did." More wolves were arriving, drawn by the light or the hunt call or something else entirely. They emerged from the trees in groups: Northern Dominion, Eastern Reach, Wildlands, even a few bearing marks Calith didn't recognize. Within minutes, the clearing was packed with bodies, all of them staring at her. A female stepped forward from the Eastern Reach group. Calith recognized her, one of Celine Vale's lieutenants, sharp-eyed and dangerous. "Is it true?" the female asked. "Are you the crown?" "I don't know what that means," Calith said. "The old bloodline," the female pressed. "The first wolves. The ones who ruled before territories, before packs fragmented. The stories say the crown would return when the packs were breaking apart, that silver light would mark them." She gestured at Calith. "You're glowing." Calith looked down at her hands. The light was gone, but her skin felt different, charged. "I'm not glowing anymore." "You were," another voice said. A male from the Wildlands this time, older, with ritual scars across his face. "We all saw it. The silver light. The power. It's exactly what the old songs describe." "Songs aren't facts," Calith said, but her voice wavered. "Neither are rejected mates who make alpha kings chase them across 3 territories," the Wildlands male countered. "Yet here we are." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Agreement, speculation, fear. Darian moved closer to Calith. "We need to leave. This is getting out of control." But the crowd was pressing in now, not threatening, but curious, hungry for answers Calith didn't have. Hands reached out, not to grab, but to touch, as if proximity to her might prove something. Calith's wolf snarled, overwhelmed. "Back off," she said, and power threaded through the words without her meaning it to. The command hit like a physical force, and every wolf in the clearing took a step back simultaneously. Silence. Calith's breath caught. She hadn't meant to do that, hadn't known she could. The pendant burned against her skin. "Calith," Darian said carefully, "we really need to go." This time she didn't argue. They moved through the crowd, and wolves parted like water around stone. Some dropped their eyes. Others whispered prayers to things that predated modern packs. One female reached out and pressed something into Calith's hand as she passed. A carved stone token, old and smooth. "For luck," the female whispered. "My lady." Calith shoved it in her pocket and kept walking. They made it to the edge of the clearing before the first howl rose. It wasn't a hunt call this time. It was something else. A summons, maybe, or a challenge. The sound echoed through the trees, and within seconds, more howls answered from every direction. "What is that?" Calith asked. "Rival alphas," Darian said grimly. "They're not coming to hunt you anymore. They're coming to claim you." That. They ran. Through dense forest and across streams swollen with spring melt, Darian leading and Calith following, the bond with Aeron pulling tighter with every mile they covered. She could feel him getting closer, not physically, but through the connection. His presence grew stronger, more insistent, like he was burning through distance with sheer will. "He's coming!" Calith gasped. "I know." Darian vaulted over a fallen log without breaking stride. So are they. Behind them, the forest was alive with movement. Wolves converging from multiple directions, some in human form, some shifted, all of them driven by the same impulse. Reach Calith Voss before someone else did. They burst out of the tree line into another clearing, this one smaller, surrounded by rocky outcroppings that provided some cover. Darian pulled Calith behind the largest boulder, both of them breathing hard. "How many?" Calith asked. Darian's eyes were tracking movement through the trees. "Too many. At least 3 different packs, maybe more." He swore under his breath. "This is exactly what I was afraid of." "What?" "That you'd become the prize everyone fights over instead of the player who controls the board." He looked at her. "The moment that light appeared, you stopped being a rejected mate and became something every alpha wants to possess." The word made Calith's skin crawl. "I'm not something to possess. Tell them that." The first wolves emerged from the trees. Eastern Reach, led by a male Caliph didn't recognize, tall, muscular, with eyes that assessed her like she was territory to be claimed. Behind him, a dozen warriors spread out, surrounding the clearing. Caliph Voss, the male called. His voice carried easily across the space. I am Aldrich Var, Alpha of the Eastern Ridge Pack. I'm here to offer you protection. I don't need protection, Caliph called back. Everyone needs protection, Aldrich said, especially wolves marked by ancient bloodlines and hunted by the most powerful king on the continent. Come with me. I can keep you safe. In exchange for what? Aldrich smiled. It didn't reach his eyes. Your allegiance. Stand with the Eastern Reach. Help us push back Northern Dominion's expansion. In return, you'll have pack, position, and power of your own. Before Caliph could respond, more wolves appeared from the opposite side of the clearing. Wildlands, from the ritual scars and leather armor. Their leader was a female, lean and scarred, with silver threading through dark hair. Don't listen to him, the female said. Eastern Reach will use you and discard you the moment you're no longer useful. I'm Kira Blackmoon. The Wildlands don't play political games. We honor the old ways. If you carry the crown bloodline, you belong with us. She doesn't belong anywhere, a third voice said. Caliph's heart sank as another group emerged. Northern Dominion wolves, but not the hunters from before. These were soldiers, disciplined and dangerous, led by a wolf Caliph recognized from court. Commander Thane, one of Aeron's most loyal. The Alpha King issued a direct order, Thane said. Caliph Voss returns to Northern Dominion territory. Immediately. She's not yours to order around, Aldrich said. She's under the king's protection, Thane countered. That makes her our concern. Your king rejected her, Kira said flatly. He gave up any claim when he severed the bond. The bond was never severed, Thane said. Ask her. She can still feel him, can't she? All eyes turned to Caliph. The bond pulsed in her chest, insistent and undeniable. She could feel Aeron like a compass needle pointing north, his anger, his determination, his absolute certainty that she belonged with him. The bond is none of your business, Caliph said. Everything about you is our business now, Aldrich said. You're not just a rejected mate anymore, you're a symbol. The crown returned. Every pack in the territory is going to want to align with you or eliminate you. You need to choose a side. I choose myself, Caliph said. That's not an option, Thane said. He moved forward, hand on his blade. Come with us peacefully, or we'll take you by force. Those are your choices. Darian stepped in front of Caliph. You'll have to go through me first. Thane's expression hardened. Don't do this, Rook. You're already walking the edge of treason. Don't jump off. I stopped serving Aeron the moment he rejected his mate to protect his image, Darian said. What happens next is his fault, not mine. The clearing went very still. So it's true, Thane said quietly. You're betraying him. I'm choosing the right side. There is no right side, Thane said. There's only loyalty and treason. You're choosing treason. Weapons started coming out, blades, claws extending as wolves prepared to shift. The air thickened with violence, waiting to explode. Caliph's wolf rose fast, sensing danger, and then the bond flared so violently that Caliph screamed. It wasn't pain, not exactly, but the force of it drove her to her knees. Through the connection, she felt Aeron like he was standing right next to her, his presence overwhelming and absolute. He was close. Very close. He's here, Caliph gasped. The words had barely left her mouth when dominance crashed over the clearing like a tsunami. Every wolf staggered under the weight of it. Lesser wolves dropped immediately, unable to stay standing. Even the alphas, Aldrich, Kira, Thane, went rigid, fighting the instinct to submit. Aeron Draven walked into the clearing. He was alone this time. No guards, no Lyra, just himself, and the kind of power that made arguing pointless. He looked like he'd shifted and run the entire way. His clothes were torn, boots caked with mud, hair disheveled, but his eyes were clear and burning gold, locked on Caliph with an intensity that made her wolf whine. Everyone leaves, Aeron said. His voice was quiet, but it carried absolute authority. Now. Nobody moved. That's not your call to make, Aldrich said, though his voice was strained. She's in Eastern Reach territory. I don't care what territory this is, Aeron said. She's my mate. That supersedes geography. You rejected her, Kira said. I made a mistake. Aaron's gaze never left Calith. One I'm here to correct. By what? Darian stepped forward, putting himself between Aaron and Calith again. Dragging her back to a court that will tear her apart? Forcing her into a bond she didn't choose? She did choose it, Aaron said. The moment the bond formed, the moment she walked into the moon court. She chose me, and I was too blind to see what that meant. Blind or arrogant? Darian shot back. You stood in front of hundreds and called her unfit. You exiled her. You made her a target for every ambitious alpha on the continent, and now you show up demanding she come back like nothing happened? I'm not demanding, Aaron said. I'm asking. He looked past Darian, directly at Calith. Please, come home. Calith couldn't breathe. The bond was screaming at her to go to him, to accept, to let this be over. But the memory of the moon court was still fresh, the humiliation, the rejection, the way he'd looked at her like she was a problem to be solved instead of a person to be valued. Why? The word came out broken. Why now? Because I'm valuable? Because the crown bloodline makes me worth something? No, Aaron said, because losing you is killing me. The clearing went silent. I felt it the moment you left the moon court, Aaron continued. The bond didn't fade, it got stronger. Every day, every hour, I could feel you out there. Your anger, your pain, your determination to survive without me. And it was destroying me from the inside out. His voice cracked. I rejected you because I thought I was protecting you from a court that would never accept you. But the truth is, I was protecting myself. From the vulnerability. From the risk. From having to admit that the fates chose better than I could have planned. Calith's eyes burned. You are my mate, Aaron said. Not because of bloodlines or ancient power or political value. Because the bond says so. Because my wolf knows you. Because when I close my eyes, the only thing I see is you walking away from me in that hall, and it's the worst thing I've ever watched happen. Pretty words, Darian said coldly. But words don't undo what you did. I know, Aaron said. That's why I'm here. To prove it's more than words. He dropped to one knee. The reaction was instantaneous. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Wolves from every pack stared in shock. Alpha Kings didn't kneel. Not to anyone. Not for any reason. But Aaron knelt in the dirt in front of rivals and soldiers and his own war commander and looked up at Calith with gold eyes full of something that looked like desperation. I was wrong, Aaron said. I rejected you when I should have stood beside you. I let the court's expectations matter more than the bond. I failed you in the worst possible way. He paused. I can't undo that. But I can ask you to give me a chance to make it right. Not as your king, as your mate. Calith's hands were shaking. Every wolf in the clearing was watching her, waiting to see what she'd do. The bond pulled. Aaron's eyes never left hers. If I come back, Calith said slowly, what changes? Everything, Aaron said. You stand beside me, as my equal. The court accepts you, or I burn it down and build something new. You'd do that? Calith's voice was barely a whisper. Destroy your own court? For you? Aaron's expression was raw. Yes. Darian made a sound of disgust. Don't believe him, Calith. This is manipulation. He's saying what you want to hear because you're valuable now. The moment you're not... Shut up, Darian, Calith said. Darian's mouth snapped closed, surprise flickering across his face. Calith looked at Aaron. The bond between them was alive, thrumming with possibility and pain in equal measure. She could feel his sincerity through it. The regret, the longing, the desperate need to fix what he'd broken. But she could also feel something else. Fear. Not of her. Of what she represented. Of the power that had woken in her blood. Calith's eyes narrowed. You felt it, didn't you? The silver light. Aaron's expression flickered. Yes. And that's why you're here. Not because you regret rejecting me. Because you're afraid of what I might become without you. That's not... Don't lie to me, Calith cut him off. I can feel you through the bond, Aaron. I can feel your fear. You're not here to make things right. You're here to control the situation before it controls you. Aaron stood slowly. You're wrong. Am I? Calith stepped forward, closing the distance between them. If I didn't have this bloodline, if that light hadn't appeared, would you still be here? Would you still be kneeling? Yes. I don't believe you. The words hit like a slap. Aaron's jaw tightened. I came here for you. Not for power. Not for politics. For you. Then prove it, Calith said. Reject the bond. Completely. Sever it in front of everyone and walk away. If this is really about me and not about what I represent, you should be able to let me go. Aaron went very still. You know I can't do that. Why not? Because you're mine, Aaron said, and the possessiveness in his voice made every wolf in the clearing tense. The bond is permanent. The fates chose us. I can't just walk away from that. You did before, Calith said. In the moon court. That was different. How? Calith demanded. How is it different? You rejected me then because I wasn't valuable enough. Now you're claiming me because I am. That's not love, Aaron. That's ownership. It's not ownership, Aaron said, his voice rising. It's the bond. It's fate. It's control, Darian interjected. That's all it's ever been for you. Control over your court, control over your territory, control over her. You don't want a mate, Aaron. You want an asset. Aaron's head snapped toward Darian. This is your fault. You got in her head, made her think she could survive without pack, without protection. I didn't make her think anything, Darian said. I gave her a choice, something you never did. You gave her a weapon, Aaron corrected. That pendant, where did you get it? Darian's expression went carefully blank. It belonged to my grandmother. Your grandmother, Aaron repeated. He took a step toward Darian, and the air between them crackled with violence. The same grandmother who was exiled from Northern Dominion for practicing forbidden rituals. The same one who claimed to have visions of the old bloodlines returning. His eyes narrowed. You didn't just stumble into helping Calith. You've been planning this. Planning what? Calith asked, but something cold was spreading through her chest. Aaron ignored her, still focused on Darian. You knew what she was before the bond even formed, didn't you? You've been watching her, waiting for the right moment to activate whatever power was sleeping in her bloodline. That's insane, Darian said, but his voice lacked conviction. Is it? Aaron pulled something from his pocket, a small book, leather-bound and old. He threw it on the ground between them. I found this in your quarters. Your grandmother's journal. She wrote about the crown bloodline, about how to identify it, how to awaken it. And there's a name mentioned repeatedly. He paused. Calith's mother. Everything stopped. Calith stared at the book. What? Your grandmother knew Calith's mother, Aaron said, still looking at Darian. They worked together, researched the old bloodlines together. And when Calith's mother died, conveniently, in an accident no one could explain, your grandmother went into hiding. His voice went cold. How long have you known what Calith was? How long have you been using her? I haven't been using her, Darian said, but he wouldn't meet Calith's eyes. Darian, Calith said. Her voice sounded distant. Look at me. He did, finally, and the guilt in his expression told her everything. You knew, Calith whispered. This whole time you knew about the bloodline. I suspected, Darian said carefully. My grandmother's notes mentioned your mother, said she carried the markers. But I didn't know for certain until you gave me the pendant, Calith finished. You used me to prove your grandmother's theories. It wasn't like that. Then what was it like? Calith's voice was rising, anger flooding through the shock. You found me right after the rejection, offered to help me, gave me the pendant that woke up whatever this power is. You didn't do that out of kindness. You did it because you wanted to prove the bloodline existed. I wanted to help you, Darian insisted. Everything I said about giving you power, about making Aaron regret rejecting you, that was all true. But it wasn't the whole truth, Calith said. You had your own agenda, your own reasons. And I was just, what, a test subject? You were never just anything, Darian said. I care about what happens to you. You care about what I represent, Calith cut him off. The pendant was burning against her chest now, and she ripped it off, throwing it at Darian's feet. You're no better than him. She turned to Aaron. And you. You rejected me because I wasn't good enough, then came crawling back the moment I became valuable. You don't want me. You want to control me. That's not true, Aaron said. Prove it, Calith said again. Walk away, right now. Leave me alone. I can't. Why? Because I love you, Aaron said, and the words hung in the air like something fragile and sharp. Calith laughed. It was a broken, bitter sound. You don't even know me. I know the bond, Aaron said. I know what I feel when I'm near you, what it costs me to be apart. That's real. That matters. The bond isn't love, Calith said. It's biology, fate playing games with people's lives. And I'm done being a game piece. She looked around the clearing, at the rival alphas, at the soldiers, at Darian and Aaron, and all the wolves who'd come here to claim her, or control her, or use her for their own ends. I don't belong to any of you, Calith said. The power was rising in her again, responding to her emotion, and silver light began to flicker along her skin. Not to Aaron, not to Darian, not to the Northern Dominion or Eastern Reach or anyone else. I belong to myself. The light grew brighter. Calith, Aaron said, and there was warning in his voice now. You don't know how to control that power. I need all of you to leave me alone, Calith said. The power surged. It erupted from her in a wave that sent every wolf in the clearing stumbling back. The ground trembled, trees swayed, and above them, the sky seemed to darken, clouds gathering with unnatural speed. Calith could feel it burning through her veins, wild and ancient and absolutely beyond her control. The pendant had woken something, and now it was loose, responding to her rage and her pain and her absolute refusal to be claimed. Calith, stop! Darian shouted. But she didn't know how. The power was building, growing stronger, and Calith could feel it pulling from somewhere deep beneath the earth, from the mountains Darian had mentioned, from the old throne, from something that had been sleeping for centuries and wanted out. Her vision blurred. She saw the throne again, clearer this time. The woman standing on it wasn't just any wolf. She was Calith, or would be. The vision showed her crowned in silver light, armies kneeling at her feet, and Aaron. Aaron was there too. Not kneeling, not standing beside her, lying dead at the base of the throne. Calith gasped, and the vision shattered. The power snapped back into her so violently it drove her to her knees. The silver light died. The trembling stopped. The sky cleared. She knelt there, breathing hard, aware of every eye on her. What did you see? Aaron asked quietly. He was closer than he'd been, like he'd tried to reach her during the surge. Calith looked up at him. The bond between them was still there, still pulling, but it felt different now, tainted, like something was using it for purposes neither of them understood. I saw the future, Calith said, or a possible one. And? And in it, one of us is dead. The words fell like stones. Aaron's expression went very still. Which one? Before Calith could answer, a howl split the air. It came from the north, deep and resonant, and carrying a summons that made every wolf's instincts scream danger. What is that? Aldrich asked. Thane's face had gone pale. The deep call. It hasn't been used in 50 years. What does it mean? Calith demanded. It means, Aaron said grimly, that the council has been summoned, every alpha in the northern territories. Every pack leader, every wolf with a claim to power. He looked at Calith. They're gathering to decide what to do about you. About me? About the crown, Aaron corrected. About whether the old bloodline should be acknowledged or eliminated. Calith's blood went cold. Eliminated. There are wolves who don't want the old ways returning, Thane said, who see the crown as a threat to the current order. If they decide you're too dangerous, they'll kill her, Darian finished. Another howl rose, then another, spreading across the territory like wildfire. How long do we have? Calith asked. 3 days, Aaron said. The gathering will be at the Moon Court. You have to be there. Why? Because if you don't show, they'll assume you're guilty, that you're trying to use the bloodline to overthrow the established pacts. Aaron's eyes were hard. They'll hunt you down and execute you as a threat. And if I do show? Then you have a chance to prove you're not, Aaron said. To make your case, to survive. Calith looked around the clearing, at Aaron, who wanted to control her, at Darian, who'd used her, at the rival alphas who saw her as a tool, at the soldiers who would kill her if ordered. She was trapped. No matter what choice she made, someone would use it against her. The bond pulsed, and through it, she felt Aaron's genuine fear. Not for himself, for her. That, at least, was real. I'll go, Kalith said. Kalith, no, Darian started. I'll go, she repeated, louder. To the Moon Court. 3 days. I'll stand in front of the council and answer for what I am. She looked at Aaron. But I go alone. No guards, no handlers. No one telling me what to say or how to act. You'll be killed, Aaron said flatly. Maybe, Kalith agreed, but at least it'll be my choice. She turned and walked out of the clearing. Behind her, wolves started arguing. Aaron demanding she accept protection, Darian insisting this was a trap, the rival alphas calculating how to use the situation. Kalith ignored all of it. The bond pulled at her back, Aaron's presence a constant weight. But she kept walking. 3 days until the Moon Court. 3 days to figure out how to survive a trial designed to destroy her. 3 days to decide if she was going to kneel before a council that wanted her dead, or rise as the queen the old stories promised and burn the whole system down. The pendant was still lying in the clearing where she'd thrown it. Kalith didn't go back for it. She didn't need it anymore. The power was already awake, and it was hungry. 3 days passed like a held breath. Kalith spent them alone in the forest, moving constantly, never sleeping more than an hour at a time. The bond with Aaron was a constant presence, pulling north, insistent as a tide. She felt him trying to reach her through it, concern, frustration, something that might have been pleading, but she shut it down every time. She didn't have the luxury of distraction. The power inside her was restless, coiling beneath her skin like a second wolf. It responded to her emotions, flaring when she was angry, dimming when she forced herself into calm. She practiced in the dark hours before dawn, trying to call it deliberately instead of letting it erupt. Silver light would flicker across her palms, then die. She'd push harder, and trees would bend away from her. Too much control, and nothing happened. Too little, and the earth trembled. By the third morning, she could hold the light steady for almost a minute before exhaustion dropped her to her knees. It wasn't enough, but it was all she had. The Moon Court loomed ahead as the sun began its descent toward the horizon. The structure looked different than it had during her rejection. More ominous, somehow, the fractured ceiling casting jagged shadows across stone. Wolves were already gathering, hundreds of them, filling the hall and spilling out into the surrounding grounds. Pack banners lined the walls. Northern Dominion, Eastern Reach, Wildlands, Southern Crescent. Packs Kalith had never heard of, drawn by the summons and the rumors. She could smell the tension from 100 yards away. Kalith approached on foot, wearing the same clothes she'd fled in, torn, dirty, stained with days of living rough. She hadn't bothered trying to clean up, let them see what their system had made her. Wolves noticed her immediately, whispers erupted like brushfire. That's her? The crown. She came alone. Suicide? Kalith walked through them, spine straight, eyes forward. The crowd parted reluctantly, wolves pressing back just enough to let her pass. Some looked at her with reverence, others with naked hostility. Most just stared, trying to reconcile the stray they'd dismissed with the power they'd witnessed. The bond flared sharp and sudden. Aaron was here. Kalith didn't look for him. She kept walking until she reached the center of the hall, the same spot where she'd stood 3 weeks ago, waiting for recognition that had turned to rejection. The moon wasn't full tonight, just a waxing crescent visible through the broken ceiling, but its light still pooled in the center, silver and cold. Kalith stopped at the edge of it and waited. The murmur of conversation died slowly, replaced by expectant silence. Then the council entered. They came from the far end of the hall in a procession that reeked of ceremony and power. 7 wolves, each representing a major territory or bloodline, each old enough to remember when things were different. Marcus Thorne was among them, his expression unreadable. So was an ancient female Kalith didn't recognize, her hair white as snow, her eyes sharp. The others were strangers, but their dominance pressed against the room like a physical weight. They took their places at a long table set perpendicular to Kalith's position. The ancient female sat in the center, clearly the eldest, the one with final authority. Kalith Vost, the female said. Her voice was surprisingly strong for someone who looked like she might crumble to dust. Do you know why you've been summoned? Because I scared you, Kalith said. Gasps rippled through the crowd. The female's expression didn't change. You displayed power consistent with the crown bloodline, power that hasn't been seen in 300 years. Power that ended the last time in war and fragmentation. She paused. That is not fear speaking. That is caution born from history. Caution, Calith repeated. Is that what you call a trial designed to justify killing me? This is not a trial, another council member said, a male with Northern Dominion marks. It's an inquiry. We need to understand what you are and what you intend to do with the power you've awakened. I didn't awaken anything, Calith said. It was done to me. By whom? The ancient female asked. Calith hesitated. She could throw Darian under the wolves right now, expose his manipulation, his grandmother's research. It would shift blame, maybe even buy her sympathy. But it wouldn't change what she was. Does it matter? Calith asked instead. The power exists. It's not going away just because you don't like it. The power is dangerous, Marcus said. He wasn't looking at her with the interest he'd shown in Eastern Reach. This was colder, more calculating. The Crown bloodline ruled through absolute dominance. No councils, no territories, just one throne and everyone kneeling to it. That system destroyed itself and nearly took all the packs with it. I'm not trying to rule anyone, Calith said. Yet, a female council member interjected. The vision you experienced showed you on a throne with armies at your feet. You admitted as much. I admitted I saw a possible future, Calith corrected. Not that I wanted it. The bloodline wants it, the ancient female said. That's how it works. The power isn't passive. It pushes toward dominance, toward control. You might resist now, but eventually it will consume you. You'll become what your ancestors were, tyrants who see other wolves as subjects instead of equals. You don't know that, Calith said, but uncertainty crept into her voice. We know history, the ancient female said, and history says the Crown bloodline cannot coexist with the pack system. One will destroy the other. So what? Calith's hands clenched into fists. You brought me here to tell me I have to die because of something my ancestors did centuries ago? We brought you here to offer you a choice, the female said. The room went very quiet. What choice? Calith asked. Renounce the bloodline, the female said, publicly. Allow us to bind the power so it can never be used. In exchange, you'll be granted sanctuary in a neutral territory. You'll live out your life in peace, removed from pack politics and the conflicts your existence creates. Bind the power, Calith repeated slowly. How? A ritual, Marcus said. Old magic. It will sever your connection to the bloodline permanently. You'll be an ordinary wolf again. And if I refuse? The ancient female's expression didn't change. Then the council will vote on whether you represent an existential threat to the pack system. If the majority decides you do, you will be executed immediately. The words hung in the air like a blade. Calith's wolf snarled inside her chest, furious and terrified in equal measure. This wasn't a choice. This was surrender, or death dressed up as options. You can't do this, a voice said from the crowd. Aaron stepped forward. He looked like he'd been fighting to get here, his clothes disheveled, a fresh cut along his jaw, fury radiating off him in waves. Lyra followed 2 steps behind, her expression tight with worry. Your Majesty, the ancient female said. This does not concern you. It concerns me more than anyone, Aaron said. He moved to stand beside Calith, not touching, but close enough that the bond flared between them visibly. She's my mate. You're threatening to kill her or strip her of what makes her powerful. That absolutely concerns me. You rejected her, the Northern Dominion Council member said. You severed the bond in front of this very court. You have no claim here. The bond was never severed, Aaron said. She can feel me. I can feel her. The rejection was political theater, and we all know it. Then you admit to manipulating the sacred bond for political purposes, the ancient female said. That's grounds for censure. I admit to making a mistake, Aaron said. One I'm trying to correct, but this, he gestured at the council. This is murder disguised as justice. You're terrified of what she represents, so you're trying to eliminate her before she can challenge your authority. We're protecting the pack system, Marcus said. You're protecting your own power, Aaron shot back. The Crown bloodline threatens the council because it doesn't need the council. It answers to something older than your laws and your votes. That's what scares you. Careful, Aaron, the ancient female warned. You're very close to treason. I'm already there, Aaron said. The moment you decided my mate had to choose between slavery and execution, you made an enemy of me. The council went very still. You would stand against us? The female asked. Against the entire council structure? For her? Yes, Aaron said simply. The bond surged between him and Caliph, and for the first time since the rejection, she felt his absolute certainty through it. No hesitation, no calculation, just raw, fierce protectiveness. That's not your choice to make, Caliph said quietly. Aaron turned to look at her. What? I don't need you to save me, Caliph said. I don't need you to stand between me and the council. I need you to let me handle this. They're going to kill you, Aaron said. Maybe, Caliph agreed. But it's my death, my choice. She looked at the ancient female. You want me to renounce the bloodline and let you bind my power? What happens to the bond if you do that? It will likely fade, the female said. The bond formed because of what you are. Change that, and the connection may dissolve. Caliph glanced at Aaron. Through the bond, she felt his reaction, a visceral rejection of the idea, his wolf snarling at the thought of losing her even as a possibility. And if I refuse both options? Caliph asked. If I don't renounce the bloodline and I don't submit to execution, then you'll be hunted, Marcus said flatly. Every pack loyal to the council will have orders to kill you on sight. You'll spend whatever life you have left running. I've been running for 3 days, Caliph said. I'm tired of it. She stepped fully into the moonlight. The power rose immediately, responding to her will for the first time without fighting her. Silver light began to flicker along her skin, faint at first, then growing brighter. Caliph, Aaron warned, don't. You want to know what I intend to do with this power? Caliph addressed the council, her voice carrying across the hall. You want to know if I'm a threat? The light grew brighter, and gasps echoed through the crowd. I didn't ask for this, Caliph continued. I didn't want to be special or powerful or important. I just wanted to survive. But you, she gestured at the council, you've made that impossible. You've turned me into a symbol whether I wanted it or not, a threat to be eliminated or controlled. Then renounce it, the ancient female said. Prove you're not what we fear. Why should I? Caliph demanded. The power was building now, responding to her anger. So you can feel safe. So the system that rejected me, exiled me, and hunted me can continue without challenge? She shook her head. No, I won't make myself small so you can stay comfortable. Then you choose execution, the Northern Dominion Council member said. I choose neither, Caliph said. I choose a third option. There is no third option, Marcus said. There is now, Caliph said. I challenge the council's authority to make this decision. The crown bloodline predates your laws. If you want to judge me, you do it by the old rules. Trial by dominance. The hall erupted. Wolves shouted, some in agreement, others in outrage. The council members leaned together, arguing in harsh whispers. Aaron grabbed Caliph's arm. Do you have any idea what you just did? I bought time, Caliph said. You challenged the entire council structure, Aaron said. Trial by dominance means you have to face their champion, and they'll choose someone designed to kill you. I know. You'll die, Aaron said, and there was desperation in his voice now. Caliph, please, take the binding. Live. We'll find another way, so... There is no other way, Caliph said. She looked at him, really looked at him, and felt the bond thrumming between them. If I let them bind this power, I lose myself. I become what they want me to be, weak, controlled, irrelevant. I'd rather die fighting than live like that. I can't watch you die, Aaron said. Then don't watch, Caliph said. She pulled her arm free and turned back to the council. The ancient female was staring at her with something that might have been respect or might have been pity. You invoke trial by dominance, the female said, a right granted by bloodline and backed by ancient law. We cannot refuse. She paused. But understand what you're asking for. If you lose, there is no appeal, no mercy. You die where you fall. I understand, Caliph said. And if you win, the female continued, you prove your right to exist as you are. The council will recognize the crown bloodline and grant you autonomy. But, Caliph prompted because she could hear it in the female's tone. But victory in trial by dominance establishes hierarchy, the female said. If you defeat our champion, you claim dominance over the council itself. That makes you the highest authority in the Northern Territories, de facto queen. Murmurs spread through the crowd. Calith's heart pounded. She hadn't thought that far ahead, hadn't realized that winning meant more than survival. "Who's the champion?" Calith asked. The council members exchanged glances. Then Marcus stood. "I am." The room went silent. Marcus Thorne, ancient, powerful, one of the most respected alphas in 3 territories. A wolf who'd survived challenges from dozens of younger, stronger opponents through sheer skill and ruthlessness. "No," Aaron said. "Absolutely not. Marcus will tear her apart." "That's the point," Marcus said. He looked at Calith with something like sympathy. "You're brave, girl. Braver than most, but you've had this power for less than a week. I've been fighting for 70 years. This isn't a fair match." "I don't need fair," Calith said. "I need a chance." Marcus nodded slowly. "Then you'll have it. At dawn, the trial begins." The hours before dawn were the longest of Calith's life. The council cleared the hall, leaving only guards and witnesses. Calith was given a small room to prepare. Though what preparation meant for a fight she'd never trained for, she didn't know. Her body ached from days in the forest. Her hands shook with exhaustion and adrenaline. The bond pulled constantly, Aaron somewhere close but not with her, until the door opened and he walked in anyway. "You're not supposed to be here," Calith said. "I don't care," Aaron said. He closed the door behind him and crossed the room in 3 strides. Before Calith could protest, he pulled her into his arms. The bond exploded between them, not violent this time, but overwhelming in its intensity. Calith could feel everything through it, his fear, his fury at the council, his desperate need to protect her, and underneath it all, something deeper, something that felt terrifyingly like love. "Don't do this," Aaron said against her hair. "Please, there has to be another way." "There isn't," Calith said. She wanted to pull away, to maintain distance, but her body betrayed her. She leaned into him, let herself have this moment of weakness. "I'll fight him," Aaron said. "I'll challenge Marcus myself. I'm younger, faster." "And the council would never accept it," Calith said. "This is my fight." "You're going to die." "Maybe," Calith said. "Or maybe I'm going to win." Aaron pulled back enough to look at her. His eyes were gold and desperate. "You don't know how to fight like this. Marcus has killed dozens of wolves in trials. He won't hesitate. He won't show mercy." "Neither will I," Calith said. "You don't have his experience." "No," Calith agreed, "but I have something he doesn't." "What?" "Nothing to lose," Calith said. "Marcus is fighting to maintain order. I'm fighting to exist. That makes me more dangerous." Aaron's jaw tightened. "I can't lose you. Not like this." "You already lost me," Calith said. "In the Moon Court, when you chose the system over the bond." "I was wrong," Aaron said. The words came out raw. "I was so wrong, Calith. I thought I was protecting you, but I was just protecting myself from having to change, from having to choose between what I wanted and what was expected." He cupped her face in his hands. "I'm choosing now. I choose you. Whatever that means. Whatever it costs." The bond surged, and Calith felt the truth of it sink into her bones. "It might cost everything," she whispered. "I know," Aaron said. "I don't care." He kissed her. It wasn't gentle. It was desperate and fierce, and tasted like goodbye. Calith kissed him back, let herself fall into it, into him, into the bond that had been pulling at her since the moment their eyes met. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, Calith's hands were tangled in his hair, and tears were streaming down her face. "If I die," she started. "Don't," Aaron said. "If I die," Calith continued, "the bond dies with me. You'll be free." "I don't want to be free," Aaron said. "I want you." "Then pray I survive," Calith said. She pulled away from him and walked to the window. Dawn was creeping across the horizon, pale and cold. Behind her, she heard Aaron move toward the door. "Calith," he said. She turned. "Fight dirty," Aaron said. "Marcus will expect honor and ritual. Give him chaos instead. Use the power. Don't hold back. Make him afraid." Calith nodded. Aaron left without another word. The door closed, and Kaelith was alone. She flexed her hands, calling the power deliberately. Silver light flickered across her palms, brighter than before, more controlled, not enough to defeat a wolf with 70 years of killing experience, but maybe enough to survive long enough to learn. Dawn broke. The summons came. Kaelith walked out to meet her death, or her destiny. Sipum titam. The moon court had been transformed. The center of the hall had been cleared, creating a wide circle of stone floor beneath the broken ceiling. Wolves packed every available space around it, hundreds of them, standing shoulder to shoulder, some having shifted to get a better view. The air was thick with anticipation and bloodlust. Marcus stood in the center of the circle. He'd stripped down to just pants, his torso bare and showing the scars of decades of fighting. He was leaner than Kaelith had realized, muscle strung tight over bone, no wasted mass. His eyes tracked her movement with the patience of a predator who knew his prey was already dead. Kaelith stepped into the circle. She wore the same torn clothes, no armor, no weapons, just herself and the power coiling under her skin. The ancient female stood at the edge of the circle, her voice carrying easily across the hall. "Trial by dominance," she announced. "Victory goes to the wolf who forces submission or death. No interference, no mercy. The fight ends when one cannot continue." She looked between Kaelith and Marcus. "Begin." Marcus moved immediately. He crossed the distance between them in a blur, faster than any wolf his age should be able to move. Kaelith barely had time to raise her hands before his fist connected with her ribs. The impact drove the air from her lungs and sent her stumbling back. Pain exploded across her side. Definitely cracked ribs, maybe broken. Marcus didn't give her time to recover. He followed up with a strike aimed at her head. Kaelith ducked on instinct, felt the air whistle past her ear. She threw her own punch, wild and untrained. Marcus caught her wrist and twisted. Bone ground against bone. Kaelith screamed, and Marcus used her momentum to throw her across the circle. She hit stone hard enough to see stars. "Stay down," Marcus said. There was no satisfaction in his voice, just grim determination. "This doesn't have to be drawn out." Kaelith pushed herself up. Blood dripped from her mouth where she'd bitten her tongue. "Yes, it does." She called the power. Silver light erupted from her hands, wild and uncontrolled. She threw it at Marcus like a weapon. He sidestepped easily. The light hit the stone floor and fractured it, sending chunks of rock flying. Wolves in the front row scrambled back. Marcus's expression didn't change. "Flashy, but you can't aim it." He was right. Kaelith tried again, pushing the power outward in a wave. Marcus dropped low, letting it pass over him, then surged forward before she could recover. His elbow caught her in the jaw. Kaelith's head snapped back. She tasted copper and pain, her vision blurring. Marcus grabbed her by the throat and slammed her into the ground. "Yield," he said. Kaelith spat blood in his face. Marcus's grip tightened. "I'm trying to give you an out. Take it." "No," Marcus sighed. "Then I'm sorry." He started to squeeze. Kaelith's vision went dark at the edges. She couldn't breathe, couldn't think. Her hand scrabbled at Marcus's wrist, but he was too strong, his grip unyielding. Through the bond, she felt Aaron's panic. He was trying to reach her, fighting through the crowd, but he'd never make it in time. This was it. She was going to die in the same hall where she'd been rejected, fighting for the right to exist. No. The thought came from somewhere deep and furious. "Not like this." The power responded. It rose from that ancient place inside her, not in a wave this time, but in a focused surge. Silver light poured from her body, concentrated on the point where Marcus's hand touched her throat. Marcus jerked back with a curse, his hand smoking. Kaelith rolled away, gasping, her throat on fire. "What the hell?" Marcus stared at his hand. The skin was burned, blistering. Kaelith pushed herself to her knees. The power was still rising, and this time she didn't try to control it. She let it flood through her, let it change her. Her eyes blazed silver. Light traced along her skin in patterns that looked almost like runes. When she spoke, her voice echoed with something older than herself. "I said no." Marcus's expression shifted. For the first time, uncertainty flickered across his face. "You're losing yourself to it," he said. "The bloodline is taking over. If you let it consume you, then I'll be strong enough to beat you," Kaelith said. She attacked. Not with technique or strategy, but with raw power and desperate fury. She threw light like knives. She made the ground tremble. She pushed Marcus back step by step, her assault relentless. But Marcus was still faster, still more experienced. He adapted, learned her patterns, found openings. His fist caught her in the kidney. Calith went down hard, the power flickering. Marcus moved in for the finish, and stopped. He was staring at something behind Calith, his expression gone hard. Calith turned her head. Darian stood at the edge of the circle. He held the pendant, the one Calith had thrown away, raised high. "Stop the fight," Darian called out. "This trial cannot be stopped," the ancient female said. "It can," Darian said, "if I prove the council's premise is false." He looked at Calith. "You're not the crown. You never were." Calith's blood went cold. "What?" "The pendant amplified latent power," Darian said, "made it look like the old bloodline. But it was a trick. My grandmother's research, she found a way to simulate the crown markers using artifacts and ritual." He held up the pendant. "Without this, you're just an ordinary wolf with a strong bond." The hall erupted into chaos. "He's lying!" Aaron shouted. "Am I?" Darian looked at the council. "Test her. Take the pendant and test her power. If I'm wrong, the trial continues. If I'm right, you're executing someone for a bloodline they don't actually carry." The ancient female's eyes narrowed. "Why would you do this?" "Because I used her," Darian said. "I wanted to prove my grandmother's theories were right. I didn't care what it cost Calith, but I'm not going to watch her die for my mistake." Marcus looked at Calith. "Is this true?" Calith didn't know. The power inside her felt real, but it had only woken after the pendant. Everything Darian was saying could be true, or it could be a lie designed to save her by invalidating the trial. "I don't know," Calith said. "Then we test it," the ancient female said. She gestured to Darian. "Bring the pendant." Darian walked into the circle and held it out. The moment Calith's fingers touched it, the power surged so violently she cried out. It wasn't amplification, it was completion. The pendant was a key, and it unlocked something that had been locked inside her since birth. She could feel it now, the difference between what she'd been accessing and what was actually there. The crown bloodline was real, and it was hers. Calith's eyes blazed pure silver. Power poured from her in a torrent, uncontrolled and absolute. The ground cracked. The walls shook. Wolves dropped to their knees, unable to stand against the dominance flooding the room. Even Marcus fell to one knee, his expression shocked. "Darian," Calith said, and her voice was layered with power. "You lied." "I tried to save you," Darian said, "by making me doubt myself." Calith's hands were shaking with fury and power in equal measure. "By making the council think I was fake?" "Better fake than dead," Darian said. "I'm not fake," Calith said. The power was building to a breaking point. "And I'm not dying." She turned to Marcus. "Get up," she commanded. Marcus rose slowly, his eyes wary. "Fight me," Calith said. "For real this time. No holding back, no mercy. I want to earn this." Marcus looked at her for a long moment. Then he smiled. "As you wish, my queen." He shifted. Calith had never seen a shift that fast. One moment Marcus was human, the next he was a massive silver wolf, scarred and battle-hardened, with eyes that burned gold. He lunged. Calith met him with power and claws and the desperate will to survive. The fight became chaos, teeth and light, blood and silver, two forces colliding with the weight of centuries behind them. Marcus was stronger, faster, more experienced, but Calith had the power of a bloodline that had ruled when the world was young, and she had nothing left to lose. They tore at each other until the stone ran red, until neither could tell where one ended and the other began, until the only thing left was... The fight ended not with a killing blow, but with exhaustion. Calith and Marcus circled each other in the shattered remains of the Moon Court center floor, both bloodied, both breathing in ragged gasps that echoed through the silent hall. Marcus's wolf form was limping, silver fur matted with crimson. Calith's human shape was barely holding together, ribs screaming, vision blurred, the power inside her flickering like a candle in wind. She'd lost track of how long they'd been fighting. Minutes, hours. Time had gone liquid and strange. Marcus shifted back to human, the transformation slow and painful. He stayed on one knee, head bowed, chest heaving. "I yield," he said. The words fell like stones into water. Calith swayed on her feet. "What?" "I yield," Marcus repeated, louder this time. He looked up at her, and there was no shame in his expression, just acceptance. "You've proven yourself. The bloodline is real. The power is earned. I can't beat you, and continuing will only get one of us killed for pride." Calith stared at him, her mind struggling to process. She'd won. Somehow, against a wolf with 7 decades of killing experience, she'd won. The silver light around her hands dimmed, then died completely. Her knees buckled. Aaron caught her before she hit the ground. He'd fought through the crowd the moment Marcus yielded, and now he held her against his chest, his hands shaking as they ran over her body, cataloging injuries. "You're alive," Aaron said. It came out choked, like he couldn't quite believe it. "You're alive." "Barely," Calith managed. Everything hurt, but she was breathing, and Marcus was kneeling, and the council. The ancient female stepped into the circle. Her expression was unreadable. "Trial by dominance has concluded," she announced. "Calith Voss has defeated our champion. By the old laws, she is recognized." The female paused, and when she spoke again, her voice carried across the hall with absolute authority. "The crown bloodline is acknowledged. Calith Voss is confirmed as inheritor of the ancient throne." Silence. Then slowly wolves began to kneel. Wolves. It started with Marcus, still on one knee, but now with his head bowed in formal submission. Then the guards closest to the circle. Then the witnesses in the front rows. Like a wave spreading outward, hundreds of wolves dropped to their knees until the entire hall was bowing. Even the council members rose from their seats and knelt. Only Aaron remained standing, still holding Calith, his arms a barrier between her and a world that had just acknowledged her as queen. "No," Calith said. Her voice was hoarse, barely audible. "Get up. All of you, get up." Nobody moved. "I said get up," Calith repeated, louder this time. Power threaded through the words involuntarily, and wolves flinched. "I didn't fight for this. I didn't fight to have everyone kneel." The ancient female raised her head. "You invoke trial by dominance. Victory establishes hierarchy. That is the law." "Then the law is broken," Calith said. She pushed away from Aaron, standing on her own even though her legs threatened to give out. "I'm not your queen. I'm not anyone's ruler. I just wanted the right to exist without being hunted or controlled." "You have that right now," the female said, "and more. The crown bloodline carries authority whether you claim it or not. Every wolf in this room feels it. We can't unkneel to you any more than we could deny gravity." Calith looked around the hall. Hundreds of faces, all turned toward her, all waiting for commands she didn't know how to give. This was the vision. The throne. The armies kneeling, but the vision had shown Aaron dead, and he was standing right there, watching her with something that looked like awe and fear mixed together. "The vision was wrong," Calith said quietly. "What?" Aaron asked. "The vision I saw, when the power first woke. It showed me on a throne with you dead at my feet." Calith met his eyes. "But you're alive, which means the future isn't set. I can choose something different." "What are you choosing?" the ancient female asked. Calith took a breath. The power inside her was quieter now, settled into her bones like it had always been there. She could feel its weight, its potential. She could also feel how easy it would be to use it, to command, to dominate, to reshape the pack system into something with her at the center. The bloodline wanted that, pushed toward it with constant pressure. But Calith wasn't just the bloodline. "I choose balance," Calith said. "The council stays, the territories stay. The pack system continues. But it changes." "Changes how?" Marcus asked. He was still kneeling, but watching her with sharp interest. "No more rejecting mates because they're not high-born enough," Calith said. "No more executing wolves for challenging corrupt authority. No more measuring worth by bloodline instead of character." She looked at the ancient female. "The crown existed before your councils. It can exist alongside them. Not as a replacement, but as a check. When the system fails wolves who deserve better, I act. That's not balance," the Northern Dominion Council member said. "That's oversight. You're still claiming authority over us." "Yes," Calith said, "but I'm not claiming absolute rule. You govern your territories. I intervene when you forget what governing is supposed to mean. Protection, not exploitation. The council members exchanged glances. And if we refuse? The ancient female asked. Then we have a real war, Caliph said. Not the trial, not politics, actual conflict where wolves die and the territories fracture. Is that what you want? The female was quiet for a long moment. Then she smiled, a small, tired expression. You're smarter than your ancestors. They would have demanded absolute submission. My ancestors destroyed themselves, Caliph said. I'd rather not repeat that. The female looked at the other council members. Some were nodding slowly. Others looked uncertain, but none were objecting outright. Very well, the female said. The council accepts your terms. The crown is acknowledged as an independent authority. The pact system continues with your oversight. She paused. But understand, Caliph Voss, the moment you abuse this power, the moment you become what we feared, every wolf in this hall will turn against you. Good, Caliph said. I'd expect nothing less. The ancient female nodded and rose to her feet. Around the hall, other wolves followed her lead, standing slowly, still watching Caliph with wariness and something that might have been respect. Marcus stood last, moving carefully, favoring his injured leg. He approached Caliph and held out his hand. You fought well, he said. Better than I expected. Caliph shook his hand. His grip was firm, despite the injuries. You held back near the end. I did, Marcus admitted, because I realized halfway through that killing you would be a mistake. We need someone willing to challenge the system from the inside, even if it terrifies us. I terrify you? Absolutely, Marcus said, but that might be healthy. He released her hand and walked back to his place with the council, limping but unbowed. Caliph turned to find Darian. He stood at the edge of the circle, the pendant still clutched in his hand, his expression carefully neutral. When their eyes met, something flickered across his face, guilt, maybe, or resignation. Caliph walked toward him. Wolves parted around her without being asked, and she realized with a jolt that they were still treating her differently. Not just with respect, but with the kind of deference reserved for things that could destroy you if you weren't careful. She stopped in front of Darian. You lied, she said, in front of everyone. You tried to convince them I was fake. I tried to save your life, Darian said quietly. If the council thought the bloodline was just an artifact trick, they'd have no reason to execute you. Or you were covering your tracks, Caliph said, making sure no one could trace the bloodline awakening back to your manipulation. Darian's jaw tightened. Both can be true. They can, Caliph agreed. But here's what I know for certain. You used me. You gave me the pendant knowing it would wake something dangerous. You put me in the path of power I didn't understand because you wanted to prove your grandmother's research. She paused. And because of that, I'm standing here instead of dead in the woods or bound and powerless. So I don't know whether to thank you or hate you. Hate me, Darian said. It's cleaner. Caliph studied him. The war commander who'd offered her alliance when no one else would. The wolf who'd been willing to betray his king for a chance at changing the system. The man who'd lost his own mate to the same forces he'd been fighting. I don't hate you, Caliph said finally. But I don't trust you either, not anymore. Darian nodded. That's fair? The pendant, Caliph said, gesturing to it. What happens to it now? It's yours, Darian said. He held it out. The bloodline doesn't need it anymore. It's already awake, but my grandmother believed it could help focus the power, make it more controllable. Caliph took it carefully. The moment her fingers touched the silver, warmth spread up her arm, but nothing dramatic happened. The power inside her recognized the pendant as a tool, not a source. Thank you, Caliph said, for this, for the help, even if it came with strings attached, and for yielding when you realized you were wrong. I didn't yield, Darian said. I just stopped fighting. Same thing. Not even close, Darian said, but there was a hint of a smile in his expression. What will you do now? I don't know, Caliph admitted. Rule, apparently, or oversee, or whatever this is. She gestured at the hall, at the wolves still watching her. Figure out how to be what they need without becoming what they fear. That's a narrow path, Darian said. I know, Caliph said, but it's mine to walk. Darian inclined his head, not quite a bow, but an acknowledgement, and stepped back into the crowd. Kalith turned, and Aaron was there. He'd been standing a few feet away, giving her space but clearly fighting every instinct not to intervene. Now he moved closer, and the bond between them flared to life, warm and insistent. "We need to talk," Aaron said. "Now?" Kalith gestured at the hall. "In front of everyone?" "Preferably somewhere private," Aaron said, "but I'll settle for now if that's all I get." Kalith looked at him. At the Alpha King who'd rejected her, hunted her, and then knelt for her in front of rivals and enemies. The male whose fear and possessiveness had nearly destroyed them both, but whose love, if that's what it was, had brought him here anyway. "Private," Kalith said, "but not far." They walked out of the moon court together, the bond pulling them toward each other, even as uncertainty pulled them apart. Behind them, the council began the work of processing what had just happened, and wolves started the slow business of adapting to a world where the crown had returned. The room Aaron led her to was small and spare, just a table, 2 chairs, and a window that overlooked dark forests. It had probably been a storage space once, but someone had cleaned it recently. Privacy for difficult conversations. Kalith sat in one chair, her body screaming protest. Every injury Marcus had dealt was making itself known now that the adrenaline was fading. Aaron sat across from her and just looked at her for a long moment. "You could have died," he said finally. "I know. You should have taken the binding, should have let them strip the power, and lived." "I couldn't," Kalith said. "You know I couldn't." "I know," Aaron said, "but that doesn't make it easier to watch you nearly get killed fighting for the right to be yourself." Kalith's throat tightened. "You knelt. In front of the council, in front of everyone." "Yes." "Why?" "Because I needed you to understand," Aaron said, "that I meant it when I said I was wrong, that I would give up everything, pride, position, authority, if it meant you survived." He paused. "And because you deserve someone who will kneel when you need them to stand with you, not above you." The bond pulsed between them, and Kalith could feel his sincerity like a physical thing. "I'm still angry at you," she said, "for the rejection, for the exile, for making me fight this hard just to exist." "You should be," Aaron said. "I was a coward. I chose the system over you because changing scared me more than losing you did. That was unforgivable." "But you're asking for forgiveness anyway," Kalith said. "No," Aaron said. "I'm asking for a chance, not to undo what I did. I can't. But to prove I've learned from it. To stand beside you as an equal, not as a king trying to control his queen." Kalith looked out the window. The moon was higher now, bright enough to cast shadows across the trees. She could feel the power inside her, settled and waiting. She could feel the bond with Aaron, pulling and insistent, and she could feel the weight of what she'd just become. Not quite a ruler, but something close, something that came with responsibilities she didn't fully understand yet. "What does that look like?" Kalith asked. "Standing beside me as an equal." "I don't know," Aaron admitted. "The bond says we're mates. The council just acknowledged you as the crown. I'm still Alpha King of the Northern Dominion. How those things fit together." He shook his head. "We'll have to figure it out." "Together," Kalith said. "Together," Aaron agreed. "If you'll let me." Kalith turned to look at him, at the male who'd hurt her and saved her and challenged her in equal measure. The bond between them was undeniable, but so was the history. The rejection still burned when she thought about it too long. The humiliation, the exile. But under all that was something else. Something that had formed not because of the bond, but in spite of it. Through the fighting and the fear and the desperate need to survive, she'd seen who Aaron actually was beneath the crown and the authority. A wolf who'd been trapped by the same system he upheld, who'd made terrible choices trying to balance duty and desire, who'd finally chosen connection over control. That was worth something. Maybe not forgiveness yet, but a chance. "I'm not going to make this easy," Kalith said. "I'm not going to just fall into your arms and pretend everything's fine." "I don't want easy," Aaron said. "I want real. Real means I'm going to challenge you, question your decisions, push back when you're wrong." "Good," Aaron said. "I need that. The court spent years telling me what I want to hear. You'll tell me the truth, even when it's hard. And if the bond complicates things, Caliph asked, if it pushes us together faster than we're ready for, then we fight it, Aaron said. We set boundaries. We choose each other deliberately, not just because fate says we should. He leaned forward. The bond brought us together. But what we build from here, that's ours. Not the fates. Not the bloodlines. Ours. Caliph felt something in her chest loosen slightly. Not all the way, but enough. Okay, she said. Okay? Aaron repeated. Okay. We try, Caliph said. We figure out how to be mates and equals and whatever else this turns into. But Aaron, she held his gaze. If you ever reject me again, for any reason, we're done. Permanently. Bond or no bond. I won't, Aaron said. I can't promise I won't make mistakes. But I swear to you, I will never choose the system over you again. The bond flared between them, sealing the promise with something deeper than words. Aaron stood and crossed to her side of the table. He knelt again, this time just for her. No audience, no politics, just a male acknowledging his mate. I'm sorry, he said, for everything I put you through, for not seeing what I had until I'd thrown it away, for making you fight alone when I should have been beside you from the start. Caliph reached out and touched his face. His skin was warm under her fingers, and through the bond she felt the depth of his regret, his determination, his love. Get up, she said softly. Aaron rose, and she rose with him. They stood facing each other in the small room, the bond humming between them. And for the first time since the Moon Court rejection, Caliph let herself hope. This is going to be complicated, she said. Probably, Aaron agreed. The council won't like us being together. They'll see it as the Crown and Northern Dominion consolidating power. Let them worry, Aaron said. We'll prove them wrong. And if we can't, then we'll prove them right, Aaron said, and make it work anyway. Caliph laughed. It came out shaky but genuine. You're insane. I'm yours, Aaron corrected. If you'll have me. Caliph looked at him for a long moment. Then she stepped forward, closing the last of the distance between them, and kissed him. The bond exploded between them, but this time it wasn't violent or demanding. It was warm and right, and felt like coming home after a long, brutal journey. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, Aaron rested his forehead against hers. We should probably get you to a healer, he said. You're still bleeding. In a minute, Caliph said. Just let me have this moment first. They stood there together, holding each other up. While outside the small room, the pack system began the slow process of adapting to a queen it hadn't expected and a future it couldn't predict. 3 months later, Caliph stood on a platform overlooking the rebuilt Moon Court. The repairs had taken weeks, but the hall looked better now than it had in decades. The fractured ceiling had been reinforced with steel and new stone, windows installed so moonlight still flooded the center, but rain couldn't get through. The floor had been completely replaced, smooth and unblemished, the bloodstains from her fight with Marcus scrubbed away. It looked like a place where futures were decided instead of destroyed. Around the hall, wolves gathered for the first formal session of the new Council of Balance. Representatives from every major territory, chosen not just by bloodline, but by merit. Marcus was there, representing Eastern Reach. Celine Vale sat for the Southern Territories. Garrett Stone had been ousted after a vote of no confidence, replaced by a younger wolf named Kira, who'd proven herself during a territorial dispute. And at the head of the table, in a seat that had been empty for 300 years, sat Caliph. She wore simple clothes, no crown, no ceremonial robes, nothing that screamed royalty. But the silver light still flickered in her eyes sometimes, especially when she was angry or passionate about something. The wolves around the table treated her with wary respect, and she'd learned to use that to cut through arguments and force compromise. It wasn't easy. Some days she wanted to walk away from it all, go back to being nobody, let someone else carry the weight. But then she'd remember why she'd fought in the first place. Not for power, for the right to exist as herself. For wolves like her who'd been dismissed and underestimated. This was how she protected them. Aaron stood at the back of the hall, watching. He attended every council session, but never sat with them. Not because Calith had forbidden it, but because they'd agreed early on that her authority needed to be separate from his. Independent. It had been rocky at first, learning to be mates while also navigating politics and power. They'd fought, sometimes spectacularly, about boundaries and decisions and whose responsibility it was to handle various crises. But they'd also learned how to compromise, how to support without controlling, how to love each other deliberately instead of just because the bond said they should. The bond was still there, constant and insistent, but it felt different now, like a foundation they'd chosen to build on rather than chains they'd been forced into. Calith called the session to order, her voice carrying easily across the hall. First matter, she said, the dispute between Northern Dominion and the Wildlands over hunting territory in the border forest. The representatives launched into arguments immediately, voices rising as old grievances surfaced. Calith let them argue for a few minutes, then released just enough power to make the air pressure change. Everyone went quiet. Here's what's going to happen, Calith said. You're going to share the territory, 6-month rotations. Northern Dominion gets winter and spring. Wildlands gets summer and fall. And if either side tries to encroach during the other season, I'll ban both of you from the forest for a year. You can't do that, one of the Northern Dominion representatives protested. I absolutely can, Calith said. That's why I'm here. To make the decisions you're too stubborn to make yourselves. Now vote. Accept the compromise or lose access entirely. The vote was unanimous for compromise. Calith moved to the next item on the agenda. The session lasted 3 hours. By the end, Calith's head was pounding and her patience was worn thin. But progress had been made, treaties signed, disputes resolved. The system working not perfectly, but better than it had before. When the council finally adjourned, Calith remained in her seat, letting the hall empty around her. Aaron approached slowly, and when he reached her, he held out his hand. Calith took it and let him pull her to her feet. You're getting better at this, Aaron said. I'm getting better at threatening people into cooperation, Calith corrected. Not sure that's the same thing. It's effective, Aaron said. That counts. They walked out of the moon court together, hand in hand, the bond a comfortable warmth between them. Outside, the moon was rising, full and bright, casting silver light across the valley. Wolves moved through the settlement below, going about their lives in a world that was slowly, painfully adapting to change. Calith stopped and looked up at the moon. Do you ever wonder if we're doing this right? She asked. Every day, Aaron said. But then I remember what the alternative looked like. Wolves being rejected for their bloodlines. Power concentrated in the hands of the few, a system that valued tradition over justice. He squeezed her hand. We're not perfect, but we're better. Better, Calith repeated. I can live with better. Good, Aaron said, because better is all we're going to get. The rest is just showing up every day and trying not to make it worse. Calith laughed. It was a sound she'd learned to make again over the past 3 months, genuine and unguarded. They stood there together under the full moon, the Alpha King and the Crown, mates and equals, watching their world struggle towards something that might eventually look like balance. It wasn't the future Calith had imagined when she'd walked into the moon court expecting recognition and receiving rejection instead. But it was hers. She'd fought for it, bled for it, nearly died for it, and in the end, she'd done more than survive. She'd changed everything. The bond pulsed between them, and Calith leaned into Aaron, letting herself have this moment of peace before the next crisis inevitably arrived. I love you, Aaron said quietly, in case I haven't said it enough. You've said it, Calith said, but I don't mind hearing it again. I love you, Aaron repeated, not because of the bond, not because you're the crown, because you're you, stubborn and fierce and willing to fight the entire world for what's right. Calith turned to look at him. I love you too, even though you're impossibly controlling and terrible at admitting when you're wrong. I've gotten better at that, Aaron protested. Slightly better, Calith conceded. There's room for improvement. Aaron smiled and kissed her, and the bond sang between them, warm and right and chosen. When they broke apart, Calith rested her head against his shoulder and looked out at the territory spread below them. Somewhere in the forests, wolves were hunting. In the settlements, packs were gathering for evening meals. In the council chambers, representatives were already plotting their next moves. testing boundaries, looking for advantages. The work was never done. But for the first time since the rejection, Calith felt like she had a place in it. Not as a victim or a weapon or a symbol, but as herself. The queen who'd risen from nothing. The mate who'd demanded equality. The wolf who'd changed the world by refusing to break. The moon climbed higher, and Calith Voss stood beneath it, unbowed, unbroken, and finally, irrevocably free. The end. In a world built on hierarchy and tradition, one rejected wolf proved that the greatest power isn't in ruling others, it's in refusing to be ruled. Calith Voss came to the moon court as nobody and left as a queen, not through conquest, but through the simple, radical act of choosing herself. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is survive. And sometimes surviving changes everything. Thank you for watching this journey. If you enjoyed this story, please like, subscribe, and share where you're watching from in the comments. Until next time.